This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Commemorating the 10th anniversary of the greatest comic book movie of all time, the Hard-Traveling Fanboys celebrate Dark Knight Month.
Welcome once again, everyone, to the L-shaped studio, Ho-Ho Loon Plaza, Vancouver, BC, Canada, by way of Southeast Alabama. I am Greg Phillips. With me is Nick Duke. We are the Hard-Traveling Fanboys, and we are here to once again take you off the page as part of our Dark Knight Month at the Hard-Traveling Studios. We are going to have our second installment of Dark Knight Month and our second installment of Off the Page this month by taking a look at a movie that Nick opened 2 years ago. This is the sequel to Batman Begins.
10 years ago.
10 years ago, not 2 years ago. 2 years ago is when the WWE Draft was held, which is a written piece that you can find on Place to Be Nation within the next week, unless I fail to finish it. But nonetheless, The Dark Knight opened 10 years ago, and that's kind of what started our idea for Dark Knight Month. We, Nick and I, are here to celebrate this movie, and while last week we were joined by the manager, Todd Weber, and Nick...
You and I have so many things to say about this movie that it wasn't really necessary to bring another voice in. And also, from my perspective anyway, I think it's kind of cool to kind of recreate the first time we each saw it, because when we first saw it, it was just me and you. Practically almost just me and you. Greg and I actually first saw this movie in a theater with only about 20 people in it, and I'm sure we will tell that story as we get through the movie.
Absolutely. And let me warn everybody up front. When Nick says we have a lot to say about this movie, that's actually rather... overstating it a bit, because if you like hearing people talk on a podcast, this is not going to be the podcast for you. If you like hearing people make sexes during the course of a podcast to excitement and joy over what they're watching at a given time, then this might be the podcast for you.
I am going to try and get Greg's fateful line that he acted at theater the night we saw it the first time, so stay tuned for that. I'll call it out when it happens.
I actually don't remember that.
I'll set you up for it, and we'll see if you remember it.
We'll see. With all that said, all that rigmarole out of the way, anybody that listens to the show regularly knows how this works. We will be watching the movie as we talk to you on this podcast. We will not get through the entirety of the film. However, we will use it as a guide to kind of remind us of things we maybe haven't talked about, or, as is often the case with movies we like, just to stop talking entirely, which makes for awesome audio.
Indeed it does. We recommend with all these off the pages that we give you the opportunity to fire up your movie and watch along with us, but on more so than anything, I would recommend that, because as a standalone audio experience, I don't know exactly what we're going to provide here other than mouth agape wonder and awe that doesn't translate to audio, as you said.
To quote a good friend of mine, Nick, there's going to be a lot of good.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes.
Good. So, with all that being said, we're going to give you a chance right now to grab your copy of 2008's The Dark Knight, Blu-ray, HD DVD, whatever you may have it on. Grab that, put it in your player of choice, or if you can find streaming premise of it, which is, spoiler alert, it's awesome. Anyway, I'm going to count you in right now in 3, 2, 1, and hold that thought.
Oh, for God's sake.
Why is it not playing? That's a good question, Greg. The movie won't play, quite frankly. Okay, now 3, 2, 1, and play.
Oh, man. Let me just say off the top before we ever get started. I know it's only the logo, but, like, I'm watching this got this movie in 4K for my birthday back in December. And actually, believe it or not, haven't had the time to sit down and watch it yet. And just watching the logos right now, the visual is stunning. I would highly recommend the Christopher Nolan 4K collection to anyone who owns a 4K Blu-ray player and a 4K TV. He personally oversaw the 4K transfers for all the films included himself, and this one, right from the jump, looks amazing, including my now is in standard letterbox, but is about to expand to full screen for the sections of the film that were filmed in IMAX, and this prologue, of course, is one of those sections. Boom. Oh, oh, God.
What part are you at right now?
I'm looking at the buildings. We're panning into the buildings, and like I said, my movie just because I'm watching it on the 4K edition, it just converted from letterbox to full screen IMAX.
I don't know if it's the upscaler. I think it is the upscaler on the Pro, but mine just did that.
Awesome. That's an awesome thing. It really helps to capture. I don't know if you got to, Greg. I don't remember if you got to see this film in IMAX or not.
I didn't.
I got to see it twice in IMAX actually. And it was one of the best movie-going experiences of my godforsaken life. And having this effect to sort of recreate that is really cool.
Yeah, this is amazing. No doubt.
We're 30 seconds in and already just blowing it. We're just going to blow it the entire time.
I don't remember if I know that I saw, and the reason I don't remember is I saw this movie in theaters 5 times. Mm-hmm. At least 4 times. I remember 4 times distinctly because some were with the same groups of people and some were different. Mm-hmm. So,
I think I saw it 10 times in theaters.
Good Lord.
I think I did. Yeah, I would have to think about it and come up with it. But I know I saw it in theaters 1, 2, 3. I saw it 4 times the first week it was out alone.
This opening scene is
one of the time.
Yeah, this just sets the tone. I mean,
do you remember that they actually attached to
just the general physique, you know, the Dwight Yoakam look about him, which I've always said, Nick, if there's one thing I would like people to describe me as, it's Dwight Yoakam. Well,
you know, you could be the Dwight Yoakam to my Lyle Lovett, and we'll see what happens.
Who would be our Tanya Tucker?
I don't. That's not for me to say, quite frankly.
We're not going to get Nick in trouble right now. We're going to move on, and we're gonna move on to this opening scene. Just the movie that I think The Dark Knight gets compared to the most is Michael Heat, right?
Yes.
And this kind of sets the tone for that. This intro, probably the most Heat-like thing in the movie in terms of panning in on the buildings, setting up the heist.
And that's very intentional, because one thing that Christopher Nolan does for his entire cast and crew on the first night of shooting, he actually screens 2 movies that are influences on him for whatever movie he is making at the time. For Batman Begins, for example, he screened both Ridley Scott's original Alien film and Superman the movie. I don't remember what the other one was on this one, but I know he screened Heat for the entire casting before the filming of this as well.
How does Sex Ferguson feel about Heat?
He thinks it's good. A good thing.
That's good. You didn't give me what I was looking for there. We'll take it nonetheless.
As long as it ain't the fucking fire down below.
So in addition to kind of giving you the feel of Heat, which is a really crime movie, it also establishes this version of the Joker right off the bat. Chaos. Absolute chaos. But very organized chaos, because he has this elaborate heist planned out.
Shadow, and people hated it. Hated it.
Absolutely. We'll get into that, I think, in a minute with regards to the Joker. People hated the design, the look, the feel, the certainly was hated, and just as an aside, Nick, if I get one more goddamn notification from HQ, I'm gonna jump out of the building. I don't know why I'd be in one in the first place, but I'll do it. This is bloody ridiculous. Anyway, yes, the design of the Joker, the casting of the Joker. But I think before we get into all that, we should jump right into the real reason everybody's here. They're not here for The Dark Knight. They're not here to talk about this movie or hear us talk about this movie. They are here to hear our personal story about how we enter this movie. Because we're the stars of the show, Nick. Don't forget that.
All right, so how far back do you want to go? Because like I think my personal story with this movie anyway goes back further than actually seeing the movie. So a little context: we talked about Batman Begins last week, excuse me, and that Batman Begins came out in the summer of 2005, and so I had just finished my junior year of high school. I was entering my senior year of high school, and I remember seeing the movie. And those who know me know that for most of my life, or not even most of my life, half of my life, favorite movie of all time was Return of the Jedi. Had been that way since I was a little kid, all the way coming up. And then when I saw Batman Begins in 2005, that pretty much changed instantly. And the reason was, while there were things about Batman Begins, like the fight choreography or the Katie Holmes of it all, that you could nitpick, it gave me a take on my favorite character in comics, and probably one of my favorite characters in all of media, that I never expected on the big screen. I think we all thought at the time that the Burton version of the character was as dark as it was going to get. And then when they come with Batman Begins, and it has a legitimate A-list cast, and the general approach and the overall quality of the film, I went away. And so, from 2005 up until 2008, Batman Begins became my go-to, comfort movie. It was the movie I would watch every time I was sick. It was the movie when I was bored, needed something for background noise. I legitimately, even though, as we'll discuss, The Dark Knight is now on a whole other tier in terms of my favorite films of all time, Batman Begins is probably the single movie I've seen more than any other movie in my life. Just because of, being in college at that time, leading up to this movie, The Dark Knight coming out, and you have all that free time, and you can just kind of put whatever you want on the TV because you're not living with your parents anymore, I watched Batman Begins to death. And so, we talked about last time that I didn't really follow the Batman Begins because I was so cynical about the direction of the franchise. And so I went from I did a complete, as massive a 180 in that regard as you can possibly do, because I went from not following anything about Batman Begins to obsessively following everything about The Dark Knight. The first bit of casting that came out, of course, that shot of the Joker, like we talked about. And the brilliant thing for this movie that a lot of people may not even remember, the best marketing campaigns for anything ever seen. The marketing for this movie was a beast unto itself. Little interactive games that you could play online and in person. There were actual, sometimes Warner Brothers would set up actual, pickup locations for these secret items if you had deciphered a certain code or whatever. And so you were playing this viral marketing game with all these people from around the world to unlock still images or new trailers or audio clips or just a piece of the plot. Because another thing,
I remember the newspaper clippings they'd put out where we were analyzing them in the Trop office, our school newspaper, in the months leading into the movie.
Trying to figure out, because the thing is, despite all the trailers and clips that were released, nobody really knew what the movie was going to be about necessarily. We knew that the Joker was in it, but in terms of the plot points from A to B, the trailers, in true Chris Nolan fashion, were cut in such a way that you walked into it not really knowing the ride about to go on, and so we were for everything. And it doesn't hurt that I would argue this movie has probably the best trailers of any movie I've ever seen, in terms of, I don't know if you remember this, but I'm going to send a special shout out to Kendra Mage will ever hear this, because I remember when you and I would be working on the Trop, she would get so angry with me and you and Greg Rossino and Nathan Morris because we would just be watching the trailers for this movie over and over again on repeat and not doing our work like we were supposed to be doing. And her, as the responsible editor she was, would be trying to convince us, hey, do work, and we would just ignore her and watch the trailers some more. So, special shout out to Kendra, even though she'll never listen to this, ever.
Yes, and It's no secret that she's actually worked her way up in the newspaper world while we worked our
our way out. Yes. So it goes to show you what a little work ethic will do for you.
Exactly. But nonetheless,
but that was just the build to the movie. And I know you probably were just as, I don't know how in depth with it you were at the time, but you probably recall I was way into that viral marketing stuff, especially the I Believe in Harvey Dent segment that eventually came up.
That was amazing. It was groundbreaking. I mean, I feel fairly certain that there had been viral marketing for movies before this, but I don't remember it.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't think it's ever worked as well as it did with this movie, before or since.
And it kind of like hit us. You know, we were the perfect target audience for it. You know, we were, early 20s, people who loved Batman and people who had kind of grown up with this form of technology and were, somewhat experienced with the still emerging social media technology. So, like, it just was it felt like a marketing campaign that was tailor-made for our specific level of fan.
I think everyone in our friends group changed our profile pictures for a while to those I Believe in Harvey Dent, the Joker image, the Batman image, the viral marketing images that they released for this. It was so effective that it, like, for us, it affected us so much more than any commercial campaign or any Taco Bell campaign or whatever that a movie could do, because we were already spending all of our time on the internet anyway.
Right.
And so it was giving us something to do in between classes or in between work sessions. We could go out and search for clues on the plot, try to piece things together in our minds for who and what we thought would be popping up in the movie and happening. And the beauty of it was none of our theories ended up being true.
Dude, do you remember how many different, like, characters, like, whenever they would announce a new piece of casting, we would all go, oh, he's got to be the Riddler. How many different Riddlers did we tab at various points throughout this trilogy?
We were so convinced that the Riddler was going to be a factor in this movie that it wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of who was going to be playing the Riddler. I
believe, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't Anthony Michael Hall's character typically the most, like, the most popular choice?
We all assumed that Anthony Michael Hall was going to be the Riddler, yes. Right. Or an early proto version of the Riddler. Like, we thought he'd be Edward Nygma early in his life. And so, but that was the beauty of this, and that's the beauty of what Chris Nolan does with his trailers compared to almost every other film director. He has the power to not give away anything of note in the trailer. He gives you enough to tantalize you. He gives you enough to make you want to see the movie, but he gives away absolutely nothing of substance.
And, like, my excitement level for this movie, because of my love for Batman Begins, was already so high, and then they announced that this character we're seeing now was going to be in the movie, and I lost my shit. Because anybody who knows anything about me and my fandom of Batman knows that...
We know about your love of Sal Maroni.
My love of Harvey Dent and Two-Face. He's always been my favorite Batman villain. Probably always will be. And he's one that I feel like has been grossly underserved, or had been grossly underserved by films to this point.
And you could even argue by the comics.
Yeah, I mean, at least there are really good Two-Face stories. Something like Face the Face, for example, springs to mind. Right. I mean, there are others from the old 70s, Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil stuff, but it was one that the big screen had not really gotten right. And yet the animated series, of course, that version left a huge impression on me as a kid, and is probably primarily responsible for my my love for the character. Because unlike the Batman Forever version, the Batman animated series version and this version, we actually get to see the fact that Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne have a relationship prior to him becoming Two-Face. Now, in this movie, granted, it's something more of an adversarial one, but I would argue it's an adversarial yet mutually respectful one that adds a ton of depth to his eventual turn, because it showcases that Bruce feels like he is the one person that can actually deliver unto him a happy life. He is the one person that he feels like he can entrust Gotham to and finally put the idea of being Batman away, which, yes, for people who bitch about The Dark Knight Rises, this entire trilogy, he was looking for a way out the entire time. And if you can't deal with that, get the fuck out. I
agree with you, Nick. I agree with you so much, and we'll we'll probably address that next week. But that's we kind of hinted at it last week. The idea of this is creating a symbol to inspire others to make sure what happened to him never happens again. But it's never the idea that he's going to continue this mission indefinitely. That's never, ever been the idea. And as we see at the end of this movie, this almost gives him a little bit of a way out. But we'll get to that a little bit later on. But yeah, so the viral marketing we established was extremely effective for us. The cast announcements were extremely effective on us as they rolled them out. Even though I'll be the first to admit, I was extremely skeptical of the most important casting in this film that we'll get to as the thing progresses.
To be fair, I feel like we all were. Like, there are people now who will claim, no, I was always on board. Bullshit, you weren't. Don't start that. Like, the general fan community was so down on the idea when it was first announced, and now people try to make themselves sound smarter by saying they really weren't, and it's a big load of horseshit. Like, yes. I wasn't necessarily against it, because at that point, I had seen all of Chris Nolan's movies. I had gone back and watched them all. I had watched Batman Begins to death, and he had my utmost confidence, but it was definitely something where I was trusting more in the director than I was necessarily the performer.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, it wasn't necessarily that Heath Ledger was... And then this guy was the Riddler. Sorry. Right. Even watching the movie, this guy could be the Riddler, Mr. Reese.
Mr.
Remember?
Reese, yes, Mr. Reese, get it?
Yeah, which C isn't Catwoman. But yeah, so I've already lost track of what I was even talking about.
We were talking about the Heath Ledger casting.
The Heath Ledger casting, yeah. So it wasn't that Heath Ledger was a bad actor. Far from it. In fact, I've gone back and really can appreciate all of what he did before this movie. But at the time, it wasn't like Heath Ledger was on the tip of everyone's tongues as, like, you know, this intense
method actor
that could encompass a role that involves sadism and psychopathy in a convincing manner. You know, he was probably most well known for a handful of roles: Brokeback Mountain, 10 Things I Hate About You.
It crashed again.
Oh, that ain't good.
All right, I'm just gonna have to restart my computer. Pause. I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna give you a timestamp. You just wait on me there.
All right, I'm paused at
1939.
Good enough.
Wait. No, it's still recording.
What?
All right, we're gonna go with it until it craps out. All right, in 3, 2, 1, play. But yeah, you're right. He was an accomplished enough actor that, you know, we probably shouldn't have been as skeptical as we were, and yet I think we all unfairly associated him with stuff like A Knight's Tale or 10 Things I Hate About You, you know? We were thinking of him as more of a comedic actor.
Yeah, he was most known for Brokeback Mountain, 10 Things I Hate About You, you know, a handful of other roles, The Patriot, and he'd been good in all of this.
Right.
But for us, we were expecting someone maybe that had more of that established pedigree of playing psychopaths or sadists, or, you know, someone with that edge to them. Like, I remember Jude Law was somebody that came to my mind at that time as somebody that would have been a good Joker. But none of us expected this, you know, and so I was skeptical of it. I was skeptical when the look came out, you know. I was a little bit less worried about the look, because I was like, but by that point, I'd seen Batman Begins, and I had been convinced by the Tumblr. So not to be too beholden to the comic book imagery, but I wasn't as turned off by that imagery as I was by the casting and thinking, oh gosh, Heath Ledger, really? This guy, the guy that, you know, is the knight in A Knight's Tale, which is a good movie, but he's going to be the Joker? Come on.
I could say this throughout this entire movie, but what a fucking awesome scene this is. By the way.
Yeah.
Like, not to the level of the hotel scene in Batman Begins, but this is one of the better Bruce Wayne, like, public persona scenes ever put on camera. Because, like, the whole line about, oh, they should let us, I own the place, and then him acting with his eyes, and you can see, like, the things that Harvey is saying, how it's landing with him. I love everything about this.
Once again, Christian Bale is spectacular.
Yes.
And gets overshadowed when people talk about this film because of the central dynamite performance by said Heath Ledger and by Aaron Eckhart, his surprisingly powerful performance here.
Yeah, but we got to delve into Eckhart at some point.
Amazing, but again, we're still on the build up to this. So
here we go.
the marketing worked on us.
Yes.
The anticipation was at a fever pitch to the point where I may have been more excited for this movie than I had been for any movie in my adult life.
Yeah.
There were movies when I was a kid that I was maybe more excited for because I was a kid. In my adult life, there was never a movie I was more excited for than this until a couple of years later.
Yeah, no question. This was my most anticipated movie of all time up to this point. And looking back on it now, like, I think Rises was about the same level, and maybe, just maybe, for Force Awakens, the hype level surpassed it, but nothing. It would be tough. It's tough to think of anything in my life I've ever been more excited for than this.
Yeah, and like you said, we had just seen a movie in Batman Begins that did for Batman what No Holds Barred did for Hulk Hogan in terms of distilling the character down to its pure American essence.
That's right.
So now let's tell the story, and I'm going to let you take over here. The story of how we got to see the movie a little bit earlier than a lot of people did.
Yeah, so my youth pastor, yes, because I used to frequent churches and the places didn't get struck by lightning, but yes, my former youth pastor, his daughter had been an employee at what was then...
Oh my gosh, Nick, hold on one moment. This is as good a scene as there is in movies for me.
In movie history, yes.
Yes. This is
like,
point.
This is the movie. This movie is filled with those. Bam! Oh, sorry.
Do you remember the freaking goosebumps, the feeling in the movie theater when this scene happened?
And that's the thing. Palpable. That's the thing is, like, I nearly jumped out of my chair, and you know, you and I are hardcore comic book fans, hardcore Batman fans. We're so amped for this. But we saw it, like I said, my youth pastor's daughter had been working at what was then, what was the old place? What did they used to be called, Greg? The old...
Clark Cinemas?
Not Clark, in Dothan. God, that's going to bug me.
Yeah, well, I thought it was called, is it not? Davis, right?
Yeah, I guess it was. Davis, Cinema 1, and Cinema... The old Cinema 1 and Cinema 2. Anyway, she had been working at those theaters for years, and because I had known her for a long time at that point, she'd always said, well, we screen movies to make sure there are no issues with the reels. You know, because back then it wasn't all digital. It was actually, you had to actually project the movie. And they would always do test screenings for employees on, like, if the movie was coming out on Friday, they'd do them on, like, Wednesday night or something. A couple of days early so that, conceivably, they'd have enough time to get a replacement reel if there was something wrong with one of the reels. So, she'd always said, if you want to see any movie early, just let me know. I can probably get you in. I'm allowed to bring one friend. And I was like, you know, I never really asked because I didn't want to take advantage of the situation. And most movies I was fine with waiting. And plus I had moved to Troy by that point. But then as the build to this one happened, I actually called her and I was like, I've literally never asked you for anything in the 4 years you've worked there, but please, for the love of God, can I see this early? And she was like, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. And I knew that her boyfriend at the time was also working there. And I was like, so is he using his guest friend spot? And she was like, I don't think so, but I'll have to ask him. And I was like, well, if he isn't, I would like to bring a friend if that's okay. And she was like, yeah, I don't see a problem with that. And so it actually worked out that we got to go see the movie on Wednesday, like before the Friday opening.
Yes, and as you recall, I was working by that time at the newspaper and was working on the night shift. And I don't actually remember how I managed to get off that night, but somehow there was no hesitation on my part of whether to take this offer. The offer was made to me by Nick, and I said to myself, yes, I'm going to do this. I don't remember if I took the whole day off or I swapped shifts with somebody. Something happened that allowed me to go see this movie that night.
Right.
So we walk into the theater that night. I had never seen a screening of a movie before, so we got early screening rather. So we get there, and what would you say, Nick? Maybe 15, 20 people in there with us?
Yeah, I mean, like, it was the staff of the theater, which was probably like 12 to 15 people, and each with a friend, so like 30 at the most, I would figure. But it was cool. Like, our popcorn and drinks were on the house and all that, and You know, you just mentioned the palpable feeling in the theater, and that was the thing. Like I told you, the scene where he puts the pencil in the guy's eye. Oh my God! Sorry, I'm going to get off track again. What a great homage to Long Halloween here, where you're getting the rooftop scene with Gordon and Dent on either side and Batman in the middle. How fucking perfect is that? Anyway, and so, you know, like I said, I kind of jumped out of my seat when it happened. And what was remarkable was we were in a room with only 30 people, and most of them would be considered casual fans at best. And yet, but even this early in the movie, it had its hooks in everyone, and the tension level, even amongst that small group, I remember, like you said, feeling it at the time.
The pencil scene where he makes the pencil disappear as the magic trick, that was as close to, in a movie theater, probably as close to a pro wrestling live event feeling as I've ever had. And what I mean by that is, I could feel it in the room. We jumped. We jumped out of ours, and people were just like murmuring under their breath, and just like it was a feeling like you're at a wrestling match and you're really getting invested in, let's say, the end of Fall 2 of Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada.
To the point where, like, you know, you and I, who are notorious for not speaking at all during movies, started to, like, mutter things to each other under our breath.
To each other and to ourselves under our breath.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, quite frankly.
Decent. Fair, not too shabby.
Hodge like. and this was the movie equivalent, ladies and gentlemen, of a Hodge job. It grabbed us. It wasn't letting go.
No, it was
not. And there was nothing we could do about it until it was over. Oh. And so we watched the movie that night, and we're just like, it was a visceral experience, because I remember as it was going along, my jaw dropping at various points. I felt like I was almost having an out of body experience. In that,
go ahead.
We were there, but we almost weren't there. It's like I vanished into the movie, and that happens sometimes, but very rarely.
Yes.
When I watch a movie, do I feel like I'm just,
especially as we've gotten older. And yeah, I think we've become a little bit more jaded and cynical since then. But like at that point, you and I were both fully into like internet movie culture, where we kind of obsessively follow these things. And when you do that, it becomes harder for things like this to have that effect on you. But this, like, it really is probably. It's probably still my favorite experience I've ever had in a movie theater. The first time I saw this. Just remarkable. And here, Greg, the line that we debated for years.
I believe it. I
believe the pronunciation was dib dob dib bloody
suntan lotion.
We had no clue what he had said, but we were convinced it didn't make any sense. Something about suntan lotion.
It's like and I remember I mentioned how many times I saw it 4 or 5 times in the theater, and each time I felt like I understood it less. I was like I remember it was I find
no. Some of us heard it every time, Greg. Some of us said it was clear from the get-go.
Every single time I went to the theater, it's like I think by the 4th or 5th time I kind of got it. You know, I started to find at least the gist of it. You know?
Right.
But the first 3 times I saw the movie, it was just a Cockney gibberish of bloody suntan lotion.
Watching this movie, I am reminded of how difficult that countdown in a couple weeks is going to be.
Oh, I know.
Like,
and how to
5
just
scenes,
make it all scenes from this,
all the scenes from The Dark Knight. I mean, I'll probably have the backbreaking scene on mine, but then I think the rest will probably be from this movie.
Oh my God, it's incredible. But so the suntan lotion, yeah. So we watched the whole movie, and we left the theater, Nick, and I don't remember us even. I don't know if we even said anything as we were walking out until we got to the parking lot.
Yeah, we didn't really say much. I was like, hey, you want to go to Waffle House? Because the Waffle House was right there, and neither of us were really, like, hungry, and you hate the Waffle House, but I don't think we really wanted to, like...
We were in no position to argue at that point.
To go home, so we just went to the Waffle House, and, like, we were stuffed on popcorn and Coke, so I don't even know if we ate anything or much of anything at all, but we just sat there and talked about how brilliant this movie was.
Yeah.
It was the rare, like, post-movie thing, because I think... You know, so many of us in fandom now will pick these movies apart and talk about things we liked and things we didn't like. we literally had not one bad thing to say about this. And not even one middling thing to say about this. It was, everything was the best it had ever been.
I walked out of that genuinely believing it was the best movie that I had ever seen.
Yes, so actually on that front, do you remember one of the only things you audibly said out loud and not just as a murmur during the movie? So, okay.
I'm trying to remember.
We're watching the movie, and I have to set the stage for people. You got to know that at this time in his life, Greg was making a decided attempt not to curse. He was, certain people he was hanging around and just trying to be a genuinely good person. He was not much of a cursor at this point. We've heard him on these airwaves a few times, but back then, cursing Greg was not really a thing. And so we get to the scene where Batman pulls Maroni out of the club and drops him off the fire escape, and his ankle cracks, and we're just sitting there laughing with, sadistic, orgasmic glee, I guess, at this point. And as soon as that scene is over, Greg leans over to me and goes, I think this is the best fucking movie I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that's right. I knew it was something like that. I was just trying to remember the exact verbiage because, like Nick said, I genuinely rarely cursed at that time. I try not to do it a ton now, but I do much more than I used to. And so, but it was so transforming that there was no other way that I could think of to describe it. The best fucking movie I've ever seen.
We were only halfway through at that point. I mean, maybe a little over halfway through. I don't remember the exact timestamp or anything, but
there was nothing. At that point, I was convinced there was nothing they could do that would ruin that feeling for me.
No,
it was like they could have had Batman get hit by a train and end the movie there, and I would have been like, best fucking movie I've ever seen. Which, if I was a marketing guru for DC or for Warner Brothers, that would be my tagline for this movie. Best movie I've ever fucking seen.
Yes.
Quote, -- Greg Phillips,
and
Hard-Traveling Fanboys, the longest running weekly episodic comic book podcast in all of Place to Be Nation.
Yes.
And I'd put all the L's and all on the box.
Yes. And all the K's and fucking.
Right. So that was our first and most memorable experience watching this film in the theater. Mm-hmm. All the times were memorable, but that was the one that was honestly, and I'm not saying this just because, just to be mushy or because we're buddies and all that, but it's my favorite movie memory
mine too.
of my life.
Yeah.
So
no doubt. I mean, it's still that for me. Like this, and then there are a couple of others that I'd have to really think about. Again, to go back to Force Awakens, I actually remember shedding tears when the opening notes of the movie rolled, or the opening notes of the theme rolled for Force Awakens, just because of Star Wars' impact on me. But in terms of actually sitting with somebody in a theater and watching it, that's this, and it's not even particularly close. I mean, there have been great ones, but this was just such a transformative experience.
It was on a different level.
Yeah.
For and not just, it was the quality of the movie, and it was sharing that cathartic experience with together, in a way that, when you watch a movie, at least when I watch a movie with people, I'm always curious as to how everyone else is feeling about it
right.
at a given time.
But there, we didn't. You and I
look over to your side, you try to see if your friend's smiling or if you're kind of grimacing or whatever.
But
and
even though exactly. Even though you and I were murmuring to each other, there was no real need to ask, did you like it afterwards? Because we were just I remember seeing you with your mouth open, and I'm sure I had my mouth open at various, agape at various points there. Good Lord, this shot.
Oh, this is one of my favorite shots in any movie.
And this is
folks, for those that aren't watching, we're at the Hong Kong scene where Bruce is, or Batman rather, is trying to apprehend Mr. Lau, a character that has grown to become quite popular in our friends group.
Yes.
And this shot of Hong Kong where Batman is gliding through to take him out is among the best action scenes of Chris Nolan's career, among the best visual feasts of any movie for me. If you recall, the movie Skyfall has kind of a similar sequence in it that's awesome as well. This is even, to me, a little bit better than that in terms of just being iconic. And Skyfall's scene is iconic. But
Skyfall's scene probably has better choreography in terms of the fight itself, but in terms of the sheer visual presentation of this, yes.
Oh my God. This is this is as iconic to me of a Batman scene as anything in the comics. Mm-hmm. When I think of the Nolan trilogy, in a lot of ways, when I think about Batman's role in it, this is the shot I always think of, is him diving off that building, and it's just beautiful, breathtaking, and how much has Nolan progressed just in 3 years?
Learned everything. I mean, like, and the thing is, the only movie he did in between this was The Prestige. So, like, he learned some things about filmmaking, but I did not foresee the giant leap forward in terms of visually stunning action that we got from there to this.
We talked last week with Todd about how, as great as Batman Begins is, maybe you can make the argument in the last kind of sequence of the film that maybe it goes on a little long, maybe it's not quite as visually exciting as it could be. None of that here. Everything it's not just exciting to watch, it's just gorgeous to watch. The film quality, the lighting, the beautiful scenery here of the location, the set. It's unlike anything that I had seen before, and really unlike anything I've seen after. This movie, just aesthetically, is perfect to me.
I agree wholeheartly, for sure.
Sound editing is tremendous for everything. So we've talked a lot about ourselves and our experience watching this. I guess we should talk about the movie itself. Now, with the caveat that people a lot smarter than us and that know a lot more about movies have written and spoken thousands and thousands of words about this movie. Sort of like we talk about whenever we try to discuss Watchmen in a serious manner. Mm-hmm. Like, what are we going to add to it? We're just a couple of dummies, But we'll try our best to kind of talk out why this movie, if we haven't already, is a cut above everything else in terms for us.
To start with, there is not a single average performance in this movie. Not one. Every performance is good to amazing. Like, it is, I think, in terms of from an ensemble perspective, the best acted movie I've ever seen. Still to this day.
It's pretty close to that for me. I know our buddy Todd may disagree with us here, but I thought Maggie Gyllenhaal was a big upgrade as Rachel Dawes.
Massive upgrade in both acting ability, and I'm going to say it, in Kate looks Holmes. As well.
That's
let me explain. Let me explain. I had seen Secretary prior to this, and so there was something of a Maggie.
A good one. I like Maggie Gyllenhaal. I like Katie Holmes too.
Right.
And feel bad for her that she was trapped in Scientology for so long.
And also she just wasn't very. I mean, like, she was fine in Batman Begins, but she's arguably
she's not a strong actress in my opinion. Right. And Maggie Gyllenhaal is a very strong actress.
Yes, absolutely.
And again, not that I don't want to miss people to misread me. I can definitely admit Rachel Dawes still isn't perhaps a fully fleshed out character as she should be, but she's good in this movie.
Well, and also in this movie, you get to see her doing her job a lot more than you did in the first one. The first one, she's much more of a damsel in distress, whereas this, she has an active role in the story. So, like, you can take issues if you like. I'm not going to with the fleshing out of her character, but her agency in this movie cannot be disputed in my mind.
And I think that in this movie, we see her as a much more complicated person than she was in the first one, where she was kind of single-minded to the point of being absurd at times. Here, she's
849 counts of racketeering.
Constantly at Mark. Talk about in a movie with so many great realistic performances. Here is Eric Roberts to Willem Dafoe it with a great over-the-top performance as mobster Sal Maroni.
You needed it. You needed, something of that classic, like, because every crime movie, every mob movie has that one guy who is doing the big Marlon Brando thing.
Yep. This is Tom Wilkinson in Batman Begins.
And this is Eric Roberts, without question, the shining moment of Eric Roberts' career, right?
No question. Now, I will say, best of the best. Pretty good martial arts flick, but yes, Dark Knight a little bit better than Best of the Best.
Yes, just a tad, just a touch,
but
just a hair.
Yeah,
as some people might say.
Outstanding with chewing the scenery in every scene that he's in.
Yes.
You really think I want to hear you talk?
Yeah, and he's like a perfect example of the bullshit why the bullshit argument that these movies just aren't, quote, fun. like, how can you look at Eric Roberts acting in this movie and not think he's having the time of his life?
Oh, well, not only that, but again, should we go ahead and address that argument right now, or should we save that till later when maybe we can address some of the few disputes with the movie that exist?
I mean, that's up to you. It's a bullshit argument that we can pick apart.
Let's save it for later, and if we forget to do it, we forget to do it.
Yeah.
But we'll touch on all that stuff, hopefully. And if we don't this week, we'll do it next week when we look back at the series as a whole.
Yes.
This is an encapsulation to me of all the things that make Batman great. When you look back at his great comic book stories, The Long Halloween, Dark Victory, Year One. God, what else would you throw in there? Hush, even, stuff like Ed Brubaker and Greg Rucka's Gotham Central. Just all of these traditional classic Batman stories that you think about. Nightfall, all of the stuff that has built the legend of Batman and the mythos of Batman and the myth of Batman in our minds. The animated series. Encapsulates all of those great stories.
It absolutely does. And I hate to jump in again, but I'm going to throw out a theory here, and maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't. Part of our overwhelming love for the Shield when they first debuted were their promos that were styled after this scene in The Dark Knight.
100%. For those of you who aren't familiar or maybe weren't watching wrestling at that time, you may not be. For those of you that don't watch wrestling at all, just ignore this little portion. But for those of you that are listening that are wrestling fans, or maybe those that maybe weren't watching back then, the Shield was Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. When they first premiered in WWE, their gimmick was that they would come out of the crowd and beat people down. And the only promos that they would do would be handheld, shaky cam selfie videos like this from the Joker that you're seeing on screen right now. And clearly inspired by ripping off The Dark Knight. And it worked in a major way. It was different than anything that had been seen before in wrestling. Particularly on a mainstream level. And that's what Nick's referring to. We bought into it from the get-go because it was so cool and it reminded us of our favorite movie.
Right.
So, this movie, we talked a lot about this, the builds for Batman Begins. Batman Begins was a huge hit, a big success. It wasn't a hit on the level that you would think of as of a Marvel movie today.
I was about to say, even... if that movie came out today with the exact same box office reception, I don't know that The Dark Knight ever happens.
No, it would be considered a massive disappointment today just because of the lofty expectations. But at the time, it was considered a hit, a significant hit.
And the overwhelmingly positive response from both critics and fans definitely played a part in that as well.
Now, this movie did not have that problem because this movie came out and shattered records. It was a $1 billion movie. It may have been, Nick. In fact, gosh, I think it was. And maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was the first $1 billion superhero flick.
I'm almost 100% positive it was.
Yeah, I feel like it was. And certainly we have seen that surpassed since. But at the time, $1 billion was unheard of for a comic book film. Star Wars territory, And it got that on word of mouth, on great marketing, and then on the post-movie word of mouth, where everybody that I know left the theater and called their friends and said, "You guys got to see this. You guys have got to see this." I remember talking to my mom either that night or the next day and telling her, "You and my dad have to go see this movie. It is the best movie I've ever seen in my life."
Very quickly, movies that grossed $1 billion before The Dark Knight. Titanic. I'm looking. Wow. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest.
Was that the second one or the third one?
The third one, I think.
My God.
No, second one, excuse me.
Well, I was going to say.
Jurassic Park. Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Those are the 4. Since this movie was the 5th, and then 30 more movies have done it in the last 10 years.
Wow.
So when this happened, the first superhero movie to ever do it, and one of only 5 movies all time to do it.
That's incredible. And that speaks to the marketing, that speaks to the word of mouth, and it speaks to, I think, the popularity of Batman Begins on video.
Yes.
So the hype for this movie was real. The box office success of it was real. It's building off of what you did in Batman Begins, where you got the origin out of the way. You got the establishment of Gotham City out of the way. You got the main players in place. They're going to be the linchpins of your franchise. Now you can go to the next level and tell your big Batman story. Because Batman Begins very much is a Bruce Wayne story. This is a Batman story. And it's a Batman story wrapped in the context of the first real quote-unquote supervillain that he's going to face. Somebody who is created directly in response to Batman's existence, right?
Yes. Absolutely. I mean, it's... You know, you can say what you will about those Burton Schumacher films in terms of their quality, but I think the criticism of them largely was always that they were more showcases for the villains than they were necessarily Batman. And here, while don't get me wrong, Heath Ledger is undeniably a performance of a lifetime, of a generation. This is, like you said, at its core, still a Batman-centered and focused story.
Right. And people will argue about that. People will say that it's really a Joker movie, but it's not, because think about it.
The entire arc of the movie. You know, if you wanted to make an argument that this was not a Batman movie, I wouldn't even argue.
It's a Harvey Dent movie.
That's exactly right. Yep. I think there's a more solid case to be made for it being a Harvey Dent movie than it is a Joker movie.
This is a chapter in Batman's life, but this is the life of Harvey Dent. We get to see... This movie could really be subtitled The Rise and Fall of Harvey Dent.
The Tragedy of Harvey Dent, yes.
Right. So and I think you touched upon this earlier, and this is a point I always make about this movie when I'm discussing it, with my friends, is The Dark Knight is the first time we've ever seen a movie with Batman in it where Batman isn't the most noble hero in the movie.
Well,
for most of it, and
yeah, I was about to say that's tough. Yeah.
Well, I'm not talking about that, but for the most of this movie,
right?
And Bruce himself sees that. Bruce has seen himself as Gotham's savior. He sees in Harvey Dent, and it's told in that scene at the restaurant. He sees in Harvey somebody better than him.
Yes. Somebody
even more pure of heart than him.
Yes.
Somebody even more incorruptible
and
than
somebody
him.
who can do it within the system. Like the
system.
The perfect person, essentially.
I think he says at one point in this movie, Harvey can inspire people in a way that Batman never could.
Exactly right. Yep.
And that's ultimately what it's about for him. And also, he sees in Harvey Dent a way out. So we see Batman in a way weaker than we've ever seen him, in terms of this is a Batman who...
What a great gag! I'm sorry, that gets me every time. Sloshes the champagne out of the glass and then pretends to drink it anyway.
Yeah. So we see Batman have a chance to get out of this line of work and pass it on in a way to Harvey Dent, and that's because of this great performance by Aaron Eckhart, who I had never actually seen, I don't think, before this movie.
Yep. So when Aaron Eckhart was announced as playing Harvey Dent, instantly my love of that character kicked into overdrive. And so I actually went out to the local movie gallery back when that was a thing and rented Thank You for Smoking so I could see what this guy was all about. And after seeing Thank You for Smoking, I was like, I'm for it. Absolutely 100% for it. And honestly, we can talk about his performance here if you want to go and dive into that. I think it is, don't get me wrong, like nothing in this movie, no performance in this movie is on the level of Heath Ledger as the Joker, but I would argue Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent is like right below that. He's probably the second best performance in the movie right alongside Christian Bale. And the stunning thing about this film in the last 10 years to me is I was convinced at the time that this was going to propel Aaron Eckhart into superstardom. Yep. And the fact that it didn't is still kind of bewildering to me. It one of the best performances I've ever seen.
Well, Aaron Eckhart, coming out of this movie, I was convinced he was going to be launched into the stratosphere in terms of his stardom. And maybe he was a victim of the movie's success. I don't know. But he went out and he did a few fairly well-received kind of indie flicks. He did that one with Nicole Kidman where they were husband and wife that had issues. And that describes almost every indie movie.
Yeah.
But they did that one, and it got very good reviews, or at least fairly good reviews. But he never found that starring vehicle. They tried. I mean, he had a couple roles that he took that were like franchise-type roles that just didn't work.
Wasn't he in that terrible Frankenstein movie?
The Frankenstein movie is the first one that popped in my mind.
Yep.
And, he's done a couple of those other movies that are kind of lower budget or even the few high-budget ones he didn't work. Mm-hmm. And now he's kind of one of those guys that pops up in direct-to-video movies and stuff, And it's a shame because he's super talented and got to show that a little bit here. Or a lot here, actually. But yeah, so this is a movie that, if it's not a Batman movie, it's a Harvey Dent movie because he has the arc. You've got the Batman and the Joker almost playing chess with Harvey Dent, and the Joker kind of playing both of them. And Harvey is that shining knight that doesn't have all of Bruce's hang-ups, doesn't have all the scars, doesn't have all the negativity dragging him down. He can be something. And then we see over the course of this movie that all gets beaten out of him, basically. He gets pushed over the edge, and Gotham's shining knight, the guy who is the most incorruptible person of them all, gets corrupted.
Right.
And that is the ultimate reason why you can make the argument that the Joker wins this movie.
Yes. And I think that point would have been driven home had Heath Ledger not tragically died, because I think
right.
That's one of the great what-ifs, I think, in all of movie history is, what would The Dark Knight Rises have looked like from a story perspective had Heath Ledger lived?
I was talking that over, actually, with my boss at work the other day when I was telling him about this project that we're doing. And, he posed that question. He's like, what do you think Dark Knight Rises would have been if Ledger had lived? Certainly the Joker would have been part of it.
Oh,
no question.
Absolutely.
And probably a much more significant part than what the Scarecrow ends up playing.
Yeah, I would agree.
In that
yes,
movie.
A much more significant part. Yes, because the whole theme of that movie, it talks about turning the public against Batman, and I feel like the Joker would have been standing right there to egg that on in some way.
Egg that on, and to tell Batman, "I told you this would happen."
Yeah,
I mean, that was that's one of the things he tells them, is that eventually these people will eat each other. They'll turn on one another because they're monsters, and it's no doubt that would have been brought up, and no doubt that would have helped even bring the whole story full circle from The Dark Knight, which you can argue that Dark Knight Rises picks up more of the themes from Begins than it does Night, but still, again, what a tragedy to lose Heath Ledger on the heels of what is unquestionably his greatest performance.
And arguably one of the greatest performances of all time in any movie.
Time.
Yes.
Still, I don't think it's ever been surpassed in terms of a villainous performance or an antagonist performance.
Agreed.
This was... It's not even, I'm not going to say it's the standard, because it's really not the standard.
No.
You can't make this the standard.
No, you can't.
Or else nothing will ever compare.
It's the flag bearer.
It's the top of the mountain.
The title holder.
It should be almost in its own category, because Heath Ledger doesn't just portray the Joker here. Heath Ledger creates and becomes this version of the Joker.
Yes.
Which is not a version of the Joker we had seen before, not a version of the Joker we've seen successfully since. A version, we talked about on our Hard Travelers for Hire series how Marvel has cast a few actors who have redefined their characters for the comics. Mm-hmm. Heath Ledger redefined his character in the comics for years to come, and it got to the point where none of the comics have ever been able to replicate, in my opinion, with the Joker, what he got across on. Not that there haven't been good Joker stories since.
But you're right. They've never replicated this version of the character. And eventually they just stopped trying.
Yes. They tried, and it always came up just a little bit short. It couldn't, because there's something about his version of the Joker that is missing when it's static.
Yep.
Because when you see him in motion, you see the just something as small as licking the inside corners of his mouth.
I was about to say sucking on the scars on the inside of his mouth, or licking them, yes.
These little ticks that he created for the character. And all this stuff's been gone over in detail about his performance of the Joker.
How appreciated was this scene? I'm not sure it's overly realistic, but this whole, like, Batman as detective sequence right here. Mm-hmm. Man, it was like throwing ice cold water to a man dying of thirst, because we had never really seen anything like this in a Batman movie up to this point.
Never. We had seen the closest thing to real detective work we had seen in a Batman movie was probably like the lame riddle solving in Batman Forever.
Yes.
This is just awesome.
That's incredible.
The whole military weapon testing thing. So
Sorry.
Ledger's. I'm not sure you made it loud enough, Shot.
Yeah, but these movies aren't funny. They're joyless. They have no humor, Greg.
The Ledger's performance is so transformative as to almost defy explanation, because you can't look at this and see the same guy that was in A Knight's Tale, that was in Brokeback, that was in 10 Things I Hate About You. Great performances all, but you can't look at him in this movie and see him. All you see is the Joker. And it's incredible in a way that, as much as we praised on this show Jack Nicholson's Joker performance because it was great, you still see Jack Nicholson, right?
Right, yeah.
You don't see Heath Ledger here.
No, not at all.
It's a transformative performance that I every time I watch it, it just jumps off the screen in a way that no other performance I've ever seen in a comic book movie has. I mean, and we've seen some freaking amazing ones, but this is almost like a force, like he was inhabited by Barbatos or something.
Okay, real quick. It won't make my top 5, but if we were doing a top 10 countdown, this might actually be one of my 10 favorite scenes in the entire trilogy.
The wealthiest, most powerful man in the world is secretly a vigilante who spends his nights beating criminals to a pulp with his bare hands. And your plan is to blackmail this person? Tremendous.
What a
absolutely
fucking awesome scene.
So, okay, I feel like we almost undersold them a little bit in the Batman Begins podcast. Didn't talk about them as much as maybe we should. Morgan Freeman and Michael Caine.
Yes.
This
phenomenal
movie franchise was really the beginning of their kind of career now working together, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. They've kind of gone on to do it many times over, and they, in many ways, are like the heart of these movies.
Yep.
They bring the humor and the warmth in a way that you're not really expecting, and they are welcome additions, and so well written and well performed that I don't know what else to say, really.
Both of them can be alternatively heartbreaking and hilarious, depending on the needs of the scene. And in this movie in particular, Lucius has the biggest role of the 3 films in this one in terms of his importance, because he's the one guy who kind of holds Batman in check during this movie and sees that Bruce, in his quest for justice, is violating moral codes that he really shouldn't. And in this one in particular, invading people's privacy in a way that's uncomfortable and a way that doesn't sit right with Lucius. Now, Alfred is just the best.
We glossed right over his entire, like, some men just want to watch the world burn monologue a minute ago, but how great was that?
Yep.
Telling the story about serving in Burma and rubies the
size of tangerines.
Of tangerines, and then, like, I mean...
Yeah, Michael Caine's Alfred, I would go so far as to say this, Nick. Maybe my favorite character in this franchise of these 3 movies, because
that's in all 3 of them.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. Of the not, I mean, certainly Heath Ledger's Joker is
right. We're putting that qualification that they have to be in all 3 movies. That's really, you're talking about Oldman, Caine, Bale, and Freeman. Those are the 4 that are in all 4 of them, or all 3 of them,
and they're all great. Every one of them is great. But for me, Michael Caine's Alfred is the heart and soul of this movie. I cried in the theater during Dark Knight Rises because of Michael Caine. I laughed my butt off during Begins, Dark Knight, and Rises because of Michael Caine's Alfred. He made me appreciate Alfred in a way that I don't know that I ever fully did before the movies. Not that I didn't like Alfred. Everybody likes Alfred. But I don't think that I loved Alfred until these movies, and until I saw this particular portrayal of this surrogate father who knows what a suicidal mission his son is on, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. But damn it, if he's not going to try, and if he's not going to try to keep him sane while he does it.
Yeah.
It's just amazing stuff. A linchpin of the series. Ledger, we mentioned already, is a different level. Eckhart's amazing in this. Christian Bale, we talked about a little bit at the beginning of this podcast, but I am even more resolute than I was a week ago. The guy does not get the credit he deserves.
No,
People
he
make
doesn't.
fun of the Batman voice, and I get it. Okay, I get it. Yeah, I'm not wearing hockey pads. Yeah, okay. Maybe in hindsight that could have been cleaned up a little. But it feels like it's almost obfuscating the point of like, yeah, there's this slightly annoying thing that is easy to laugh at. But like at the same time, that doesn't affect his acting.
Right.
It doesn't affect the performance
The
that he's putting
emoting,
in.
yes. I mean, it really doesn't, Acting with his eyes, acting with nonverbal communication, just his ability to emote and showcase all the different aspects of the Batman persona, the Bruce Wayne aspect, the Batman aspect, and of course that third aspect you and I have talked about so much, that aspect of Bruce that only Alfred sees when they're in private together. He's so great at all three of them. It's just further cementing the idea that he's the best Bruce Wayne and Batman of all time. And it's not close at this point.
Here we see our Russian friend from Ant-Man.
Yes. Oh, speaking of this scene, by the way, did they get you the first time with the Gordon thing? Because they got me.
Yeah.
I bet. Hook in mouth, fully.
Yep, me too. 100%. Absolutely. I think everybody did. When we watched it in the theater, I remember the gasp of when Gordon is shot. That gasp that goes up of like, oh my God, Gordon's dead, and especially since you get
this is devastating.
Especially since you get the follow up to it. The thought in my head was, well, there's no way that they would do the fake death and then actually do the ramifications of it, because no movie does that. If they do a fake out death, they'll just go straight to the big return,
Right,
So,
and then he actually had to do. Oh, this is great. This is great. Shit.
Now, what do you think about Gordon having a son here?
They call him Jimmy, and it's something that is there in the comics. So like, and she even makes reference, "Go play with your sister." So the implication I get is that both James Gordon Jr. and Barbara are there in the, in this movie.
And here is the wonderful club scene that we referred to earlier.
Look at this.
We laughed and laughed, and then I turned to you and said, "This is the best fucking movie I've ever seen."
Look at this.
In the 3 years since Batman Begins, Christopher Nolan has figured out how to construct a fight scene.
Yes.
and how to make it look compelling. So,
Batman is just straight brutalizing these guys. Like, the most brutal Batman we had seen on screen to this point.
Mm-hmm. This is a Batman who's pushed to his edge, and damn it, he's not going to take anymore.
Nope.
A brutality, by the way, that we haven't seen from Batman, arguably, since he was locked up in that prison at the beginning of Batman Begins.
Right. He is fully unleashed at this point. He is upset. He is off the rails.
Is there anyone in the cast that we haven't... Oh, we haven't really talked about Gordon in this movie.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman
plays a huge role in this one because of that aforementioned fake out, the big swerve here in terms of what they do with his character. And use him to set up the Joker, essentially. Or so they think, set up the Joker.
And not just that, beforehand, he's also having to play the role as something of the middleman between Harvey and Batman. Having to play the guy who is secretly supportive of Batman at this point. And his relationship with Bruce gets fleshed out a little bit. And of course, near the end of the film, he gets arguably the most important section of dialogue in the entire movie. With that closing monologue, and he knocks it out of the park. I mean, Gary Oldman just does not, much like Christian Bale, I think, doesn't get the credit he deserves as being integral and essential to all three of these movies.
The best Jim Gordon.
Oh, yeah, I mean, like, it's not even close in that regard, because especially in terms of live action, there had not been a good one, really, until this point. Yes,
so he gets a huge, important part of the dialogue. you also see him as a huge factor in terms of where Gotham City is going in the future in this movie. But we also see Harvey Dent there on that train track scene getting pushed a little bit to his edge as well.
You see that dark... It's so important here. This scene right here with the roulette scene with David Dostmalchin is the actor's name.
Yes.
It is perfect because on the one hand, we as the audience know, or we assume anyway, he's playing with a two-headed coin. So you know this guy's not actually in danger, but it's important because it illustrates that darkness, that dark edge to Harvey is there. He's not exactly the pure white knight that Bruce sees him as. So this potential for him to become Two-Face is something, that's brewing within him.
And you see almost that panic in Batman when he shows up, right, and stops Harvey. Of course, Harvey reveals that he never had any intention of hurting this guy, that there was never any chance of that. But Batman is so concerned about the possibility of these chinks in the armor of what he sees as Gotham's real savior that it's unsettling to him to even see him act like this. You leave a man's life to chance.
Not exactly.
Yeah. The line a minute ago at the club also is one of my favorites in the movie when Maroni says, "From this height, the fall wouldn't kill me," and Batman goes, "I'm counting on it."
Yes.
One of the most badass lines ever in a Batman movie.
And see, right before that,
covers a lot of ground.
And one of mine is the one that Harvey just had, where he tilts the guy's head up with the gun and says, "You're not playing the odds, friend." It's such a perfect Harvey Dent / Two-Face line for a movie.
Yep.
And here they are setting up the end of the movie, basically doing that Nolan thing where we're showing you this almost as misdirection, because if we show you something, you don't think we're going there, and then we go there.
Yeah, and there's so many great moments in here. The screenplay for this was written solely by Jonathan Nolan. Is that correct?
I believe David Goyer also. I believe both Nolans and David Goyer still had a role, but I could be wrong about that.
It's just so well put together, so well written. The characters are balanced here, and here we see an important scene with Bruce and Rachel, which I think will end up being their last scene together, right?
Yes, their last in-person scene together. Yeah, so it was written by Jonathan Nolan and Chris Nolan together.
On a story by Chris Nolan and David Goyer.
Mm-hmm. Script by the Nolan brothers, story by Chris Nolan and David Goyer.
So, the dialogue here is just so punchy, so dynamic. Everyone is written as this complex, fully functioning character with flaws, with positive points, and then of course you've got the Joker, who I think is the best written character by far in any comic book movie. And here's why I feel that way about the Joker. He is written in a way that we talk about Watchmen can be interpreted different ways. There is a literal reading of Watchmen you can do, where it is just a plot and a story, and it works on that level. There is the subtextual reading of Watchmen. There is there are all the different layers of that. The Joker performance here is almost that in and of itself, because there is a version of this where you take everything at face value, and you accept that the Joker is an agent of chaos who is deliberately trying to throw everything out of whack in Gotham City. There's another interpretation of the Joker in that he is a genius on a level beyond anyone else in this trilogy, in that he is playing everyone like a fiddle from the moment he arrives in town. Everything is calculated. Everything is planned out. There is, of course, the interpretation that it's a mix, both chaotic and otherwise, that he does want chaos, but he wants it the way he wants it. And everything that he wants to happen happens in this movie, up until the boat sequence at the end.
I don't think, not to ignore what you were talking about, because absolutely, the Joker's plot is, there's a lot of different ways you could read that. I tend to go with, it's a combination of his plan and also a little bit of chaos around it. I don't think he could have necessarily known that Harvey Dent was going to become scarred and go off the rails. That's something that happened, and he worked to his advantage for sure. He then let Harvey off the leash after that happened. But one thing we haven't talked about that we just saw, and I think we might have seen it for the last time in the movie, the Bat Bunker, the design of this new inner city Bat Cave, because Wayne Manor, as we saw in Batman Begins, was burned to the ground and is under renovations. I thought that was such a cool take on an alternate version of the Bat Cave. I absolutely loved it.
And I would like to remind people that under my plan, Wayne Manor would be rebuilt and all of Batman's medical bills would be covered. Under my opponent's plan, his mansion would be burned to the ground.
And if you could sum up your campaign in one word, sir, that word would be?
Lockbox.
Lockbox.
So,
here we go, Greg. Oh, I think we missed it. We missed it.
He should turn himself in.
There it is. Oh, man.
Now, my explanation for that line, folks. There's a guy in this movie that I became obsessed with.
Yes.
For years after watching it. He is this guy who I guess is a cop. Is that right?
I guess, yeah. No more dead cops.
No more dead cops. He has a thick northeastern accent, and he is one of those guys in that if you've ever watched Law and Order or what was that other show? Any of those law shows, Law and Order SVU, Law and Order Criminal Intent, all the law shows, he's always going to be on there playing the same character, a disgruntled cop or fireman who talks in a very gruff manner. And so his lines here are no more dead cops, and then a moment later, he should turn himself in. And I don't know why that line always struck me. It always struck me, and it still to this day brings wonderful joy to me, as this movie does. I take great joy in this film, but that line in particular still brings me delight when I think about this guy and just the look on his face and just how much he's into that line. He's into that line more than any person has ever been into anything in their lives.
That's right.
He's putting every ounce.
He's got 2 lines, and he is going to give it his all in those 2 lines.
Damn it. He's getting the format for the show. He's got 2 minutes. He's going to go out there and burn the damn house down in 2 minutes.
He is going to cut a damn pace. He is going to get all his shit in for sure.
So my favorite reading of the Joker when you watch this movie is that I'm trying to think back. Obviously, there have to be some exceptions here, but virtually everything he says is a lie.
Yeah.
Nothing he says, and that's what makes him so compelling from a writing standpoint. He could be telling the truth about certain things, but you have no way of knowing because everything he says has doubt with it.
Yep.
Think about even the line when he misleads Batman about which building is Rachel and which building is Harvey.
Yep.
Does he know what Batman's going to do? Does he guess what Batman's going to do?
No, he absolutely knows. He knows 100% what Batman's going to do, and he lies to him. He swaps them.
Think about his whole speech to Harvey at the hospital. When he says, "I'm just an agent of chaos. Do I look like a guy with a plan?" The whole thing's a lie. It's all a charade. And it's brilliant because there are so many different ways to interpret him. And again, it's a level of nuance and subtlety that you can't find.
Also, this scene is breathtaking. I mean, like the
car chase scene
cinematography we're about to get into. This is incredible, unlike anything I had seen to this point.
So this is the scene where they're in town doing a big car chase scene. We're going to see the Bat Pod. Is that correct?
Yes. For the first time.
Which is a new innovation for this movie. Each movie introduced a new vehicle.
And of course, we've gone back to IMAX here. So Chris Nolan is shooting this in IMAX. He is shooting this, by the way, on location in Chicago, on the streets of Chicago at night. He is doing all of this practically, for the most part. I think some of the explosions may be CGI'd, but 95% of this entire scene is shot practically with real cars, real effects, even to the point where in a few minutes when we get the big money shot of the 18-wheeler flipping over completely, they actually did that with hydraulics and cables in the middle of Chicago. I've actually been to the location where they flipped the semi.
And, of course, the iconic Joker truck, Slaughter is
the best medicine, yes. Oh. And him just casually hanging out the door and firing.
And in a minute, we're going to get to another one of my favorite moments and lines in the movie. The come on, do it. Come on, I want you to do it.
Yes.
Come on, hit me, hit me, hit me. I want you to hit me. You know, like, it's so good. So good. Everything about this movie just works for me, and I don't even know what else to say at this point. It's just, okay, there's a couple of different things that I want to talk about while we're doing, because I don't know if we'll ever revisit this again. So, one of the things I want to talk about is the idea that is just unfathomable for some people, that you can take joy or happiness from these movies. And let's just limit it to this movie in particular. Okay. We love, both of us, I think this should be clear to anyone that listens to our show, no matter how we quibble about the individual entries, we love the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yes, we do.
We wouldn't
do Hard Travelers for Hire if we didn't love the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Exactly. We love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I love the Richard Donner Superman. Mm-hmm. I love so many different kinds of superhero movies that I've seen over the years, and they bring me great joy. I also love RoboCop. I also love Die Hard. I also love
the Star Wars movies.
I love movies in different ways. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And like, if The Dark Knight didn't bring me joy, I wouldn't watch it all the time.
Right.
I wouldn't keep the channel on if I'm watching TV, even though I own 2 different copies of it. I wouldn't keep watching it if it's on TV every time I turn it on there, if I didn't get joy from it. And a movie doesn't have to be lighthearted.
Right.
And
light in tone. Quippy and jokey for it to be, quote, fun or joyful. I agree wholeheartedly.
Movies can be different things and achieve the same emotional response.
Yes, sometimes a well-crafted, tension-filled story that is hitting all the emotional beats it needs to hit, even if those emotional bits aren't necessarily joyful, that overall feeling of seeing a movie that is so well made can cause a joyous feeling, as this one does literally every time I watch it.
Yes, one of the things that I think comic book fans do online a lot, mm-hmm. more so than other fandoms even, although I guess we see it in all the fandoms, wrestling and everything else, but comic book fans are notorious for trying to speak for the entirety of fandom.
Sorry, we're going to get off topic a lot during this scene. This is another moment in the theater when I almost jumped out of my seat. Because we had seen the Batpod in the trailers, but we didn't know how it came into the movie, and this was fucking incredible. Just incredible.
Yeah. Not just the coolest, and not just the best. That, my friends, was just incredible.
Just incredible. Yep.
Compared to other movies, which were just Lance Storm.
Oh, God.
But no, so this movie is a joyful experience for me. Even though there's a lot of heavy stuff happening in it, and it's emotionally heavy, and it's dark, and it's, yes, gritty, it's still emotionally resonant and joyful, and it brings joy to people when they watch it. A lot of people, not everybody. Everybody's going to be different.
Right.
But fandom in general, a lot of I will say the vocal minority of hardcore comic fans online will decry these movies for being too dark, too serious,
too self-serious.
To have fun.
Yes.
They're losing the point of the comic books. And I would argue that hasn't been the case in the comics with Batman since the early 70s, late 60s. And B, it's missing the idea that different tones of things can draw the same reaction. You know, like I said, Die Hard, one of my favorite movies of all time, and it brings me great joy, even though it involves a lot of death and destruction and cursing and all this other stuff. Think about all the horror fans out there that love horror movies, and it gives them joy. And the idea that everything has to feel and look the same way because they're dealing with something that was from the printed page or dealing with a superhero is silly to me.
I 100% agree.
Equally silly to me is an argument that we were talking about earlier in this broadcast.
Oh, God.
About that we've heard a lot of times that these movies just aren't funny. There's no humor in these movies. They're humorless. Too self-serious. Now, yes, they are serious in regards to the plot that they're doing, the story that they're telling, the characters they're developing. But to suggest that these movies don't have humor, we talked about this with Todd last week. It's an argument that just doesn't make sense to me when I watch it. When I watch any of these three movies, I watch them and I think maybe if you don't watch any Alfred scenes, if you don't watch any Lucius Fox scenes in this movie, if you don't watch any Joker scenes, maybe you could say there's no humor in this. But I would say that between the Joker, Lucius, and Alfred, this might be one of the funnier comic book movies, short of something like Thor Ragnarok.
I mean,
in terms of not consistently laughing throughout the whole thing, but in terms of things that I find funny and things that I remember as great comedic performances.
God, how great is this? Sorry.
Amazing. I will go ahead, because I don't know that we're going to get to it. I'll go ahead and say the scene where the Joker is wearing the nurse's outfit.
And he's got the remote control.
Yep. And he can't get it to work, which was improv, by the way.
Yep.
One of the great physical comedy performances that I've seen.
Even this, like him, like skipping and humming as he comes up. It's funny, like
woo,
you know,
doing a little Jack Nicholson there,
mocking the guy and then spitting on him is just and the Gordon reveal here.
And then when he says,
I popped huge for it
right here.
Could you please
just give me a minute? So good.
No, listen, okay, like tonally, I can understand how someone could watch these movies and go, they're a little too straight for me. They're a little too self-serious or whatever. And that's fine. I can get that. But for someone to call these movies humorless is a complaint that I genuinely cannot understand and have never been able to understand. It makes no sense to me. It's one of those complaints that makes me feel like I am watching a completely different movie than other people are.
Yes,
is it slapstick?
Makes me feel like...
No, but that doesn't mean, humorless and filled with quips are not the same, there's nuance in there.
Yeah, think about any if people are serious about that, they would have to go back and look at any action movie they've ever seen that is not an action comedy.
Yep.
And question whether it's humorless. The original Terminator is a very serious movie, but there are funny scenes in it.
Yep.
And funny moments. Die Hard has a lot of funny moments, maybe not the greatest comparison, but First Blood, for God's sake, has funny moments in it. Like, there are. It's not going to be a comedy. If you're going into this expecting it to be a comedy, I don't know why you're watching a Batman movie in 2018 or 2008 in this case. But what it is great humor mixed in to a serious movie. And I think, like you said, the Joker, hysterical in this movie. He's so freaking funny. The whole scene, a small thing, when he's talking to the mobsters at the beginning, and he refers to Mr. Lau as the television.
How fucking creepy is this here, the clap?
Oh, the clap, yep.
So amazing.
And even the Joker's plot of sewing up cell phones.
Yes. And like you said, you never expect him to actually pay this off and come back to it, but they do. Like, they come back and show Gordon is not exactly made this choice without consequence. He's got some explaining to do at home now. It's
just, he's great.
Smirking.
Alfred has so many great lines throughout this movie. Like, and even Bruce, the scene where Bruce was getting ready to turn himself in.
Yes, I'm going to tell him the whole thing was your idea.
It's like, I'm going to tell him together. I'm going to tell him the whole thing was your idea. I mean, that perfect. And Alfred is the one person in his life that he can be like that around. So it's, this movie is funny, and it works on so many different levels for me. And I think that's kind of the discussion that the reason I wanted to bring that up is, this is a movie that we're so effusive in our praise for that I've wanted to address some of the kind of common issues with it. And that's, I think those are probably the two that I've heard the most, that it is not a joyful experience and that it is humorless. And I disagree with both of them.
Yeah, I couldn't disagree with them anymore. Not to tell tales out of school.
Good Lord.
But it is going to be hard to imagine not just even if we were doing, Greg, if we were doing a countdown of our 5 favorite scenes in the history of movies, it's hard to imagine this isn't number 1 for me. This is
this
the
scene
perfect Joker scene. This is the interrogation scene. Like, that's all I need to say. If you've seen this movie and you don't recall this scene, you weren't fucking paying attention. It might be the best written bit of Joker dialogue I have seen in any medium, anywhere, ever. It's that good.
This is said with all love and respect to Alan Moore, to Ed Brubaker, to Greg Rucka, to Jeff Loeb, to Denny O'Neil, to Bill Finger, to everyone that's ever written a great Joker story. This is this is quite simply the best Joker. And listen, I'm going to be real. I wouldn't want to be accused of running from controversy, Nick.
Oh, of course not.
So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say,
are you going to hot take it for a minute?
I'm going to hot take it. And listen, before I say this,
sorry, I'm going to groan throughout this entire scene.
Yeah, here we've reached the orgasm segment of this week's podcast about Batman. But all due respect, and I don't say that lightly, because you know how much I love Mark Hamill's Joker. You know how much I love Batman the Animated Series. It's amazing. It's fantastic. It's untouchable. Heath Ledger's Joker is my you have my version of that even over Mark's Joker. Ledger's Joker is my Joker.
And you know what's incredible about that?
Idealization.
What's incredible about that, Greg? And I don't know if you feel the same way about it I do. Trying to explain to people, I remember when this movie came out, and spoiler alert, this is my favorite movie of all time, still to this day. It was instantly upon seeing it. And I had a discussion with my future wife at one point, like, how can something you just saw like 6 months ago be your favorite movie of all time? And I was like, let me explain it to you like this. I've loved Batman my entire life, and always had in my head, like, what I thought the ideal version of a Batman movie would be. And then they created something that was better than the version of it in my head. Like, This version of the Joker is never a version of the Joker that I ever would have imagined in my life. It's not even something that would have occurred to me. And yet, it instantly becomes my Joker, even though it wasn't my Joker beforehand. Like, when I talk about, Spider-Man movies, for example, my Spider-Man is Ultimate Spider-Man. My Uncle Ben is Ultimate Uncle Ben. This would be like creating a whole new Spider-Man or Uncle Ben from scratch, and that's superseding the Ultimate Universe to me. That's what this movie is in almost every respect.
It's amazing you said that, because one of the things I was going to mention in my point is that when I was growing up, and even up to this point of the movie, all I wanted was somebody to take Mark Hamill's version of the Joker from the cartoon and turn it into live action. That's all I wanted. It was my favorite Joker.
We thought that was as good as you could possibly do it.
And I saw this, and it was so wild and different from anything I ever imagined. It redefined the character for me. And when I say that, here's the thing. If I were writing a Batman comic book, I would want them, and I actually prefer it when they write the comics, to be more like the Hamill Joker. I like that version of the comic because nobody can capture this. No matter how hard they try. They try to make the Joker...
You can't put lightning in a bottle.
This like realistic badass character, and nobody has pulled it off convincingly to me to the degree that this movie did. He's just it's, and I know I might actually catch flack for this, but I will say I love Mark Hamill's Joker. It's amazing. Yes. It's phenomenal.
Yes,
but this is just I really have a hard time even describing it. It's something I never would have envisioned. I don't know how Heath Ledger envisioned it.
It's almost like
this character.
Hamill's Joker is the perfect audio representation of the distillation of the comics. Like
a perfect adaptation.
Perfect adaptation, and this is a wholly original creation unto itself, and yet still manages to be the Joker at its core. It is, it's remarkable. Like
this is like Jeff Johns' reimagining of Sinestro.
Yes, exactly. That is a perfect correlation.
So, man, I don't know what else there is.
We gotta God, this scene. How fucking heart-wrenching was this entire, this is the thing about this movie, is it takes you on the roller coaster of emotions. It has humor. It has, like romance in it. It has got the action. It's got, these dramatic character-focused moments, and then it can ratchet up the tension in ways that no other movie I think I've ever watched has made me, like, grip the edges of my seat the way I was during this entire sequence. Oh my god. And now
one of the things that I love the most in fiction is the inevitability of tragedy. Or rather, the tragedy of inevitability.
Because we have the knowledge as Batman fans. We're sitting here watching it going, there is no way this ends well. Because we know... You're rooting against hope. You're hoping against hope. You're like, no, don't. But because you know what's going to happen. You know how the dominoes are going to fall as this turns out. This is one of the greatest improvs in this movie, by the way. The mouthing of 6, not in the script, by the way. That is Heath Ledger 100%. And of course, this is going to lead the way to a line that has been transformative in our friends group. Well, we already glossed over it. We already got "I want my phone call." Yeah, but when he's holding the oh, that's right. He takes the guy hostage and he goes, yep. "I just want my phone call," which is a line that gave birth to a character all its own. A character all its own that has never really been recreated since his initial appearance. I would point out. There have been attempts to bring Redneck Joker back to life, but Redneck Joker lived and breathed only for a brief 6 to 7 seconds. One time in 2008 and has never been resurrected again. A 6 to 7 second period some would consider to be unnatural. What you've had since then for 10 years now are the bastard offsprings of Redneck Joker that don't actually look or act or sound anything like an actual human being that can be found on this planet. Delightful. And for more of that character, you can tune into Comic Book Theater right here at Place to Be Nation Pop. Okay. The only place to be in your pop culture world. Hey, let me ask you this. Every time I go to make a point, I get caught up like watching fucking Heath Ledger act. The gasoline as opposed to the acid, did that give you pause at all? No. Ever? No. Me neither. No, not at all. Even as like most hardcore purist of Two-Face fans, I didn't care. No, quite frankly, acid attacks are rare enough that it didn't bother me that they didn't use it, Yeah. The acid is ancillary. It's the fact that he gets scarred. It's the fact that he gets burned that matters. It's not how, to me. Because, even the animated series did a little bit different than the traditional version of it, where he gets blown up and kind of flipped over. This is... Who is this guy, this actor here that's playing the guy with the cell phone sewed in his stomach? I'm not sure. I feel like I've seen him before. He reminds me, I know it's not him, but he reminds me of the fat kid from Remember the Titans. Remember him. And I say that as a fat guy, ladies and gentlemen, so I am not shaming this individual. Who also played Snowball in Mallrats. He was the guy who was trying to see the sailboat. Really? I would have figured he would have been too young to be in Mallrats. No, he was just really old to Remember the Titans. Oh, my. Yeah. You're ruining Remember the Titans for me now. You know that all high school students are played by, like, 35-year-old dudes. Luke Perry, 176 years old when he was on Naruto 2.0. 42-year-old Tobey Maguire was in high school in Spider-Man 1, Andrew Garfield, for that matter, was, like, 27 when he was playing, like, 17-year-old Peter Parker. Yeah. Oh, this is... I didn't see this coming, honestly, in the theater. I was like, what in the hell is happening? And then, boom. Oh. And they've actually managed to rip this scene off for a great commercial recently. Really? I don't know if you've seen. Yeah, where it's like the doctor accidentally sews the cell phone into the patient's stomach. Yeah. We're going to make you all better. And then it's like how to make butter. Yeah. So, oh, man, here we go. Whew. This is... And you don't expect her to not be able to get the line out. She's trying to give her tearful goodbye, and so like every convention of these movies that we've watched our entire lives tells you she's going to get her tearful monologue out, and then she's going to and then she's going to die. But she's trying to tell him, hey, it's going to be okay, boom, done. Mm-hmm. And instantly, as you see Harvey's face, you know where it's going if you're a Batman fan. And you're like, oh man. And you still feel that tug, even though you've seen it coming, and you know that it's coming. Even though you don't necessarily... they hadn't done a great job of getting you to endear yourself to... Or Rachel endearing herself to the audience, You don't necessarily care about Rachel herself, which is... I guess that's something you could criticize in the movie there. That's a valid criticism. but you know what it's going to mean, not just for Batman, but for all these other characters in the movie. Alfred now has to bear the burden of her secret. Harvey has to deal with the tragedy. Bruce has to deal with the tragedy. Gordon is caught in between all these people dealing with the tragedy, and now the Joker has got all these people who he's playing chess with at their most emotionally unstable. It is just like you're waiting to see everyone wallow in the misery of this, essentially.
And do you remember one of the conversations we had after The Dark Knight, which is, we talked last week, and I'm going to ask people to indulge us for a moment as we kind of weave and wind another great scene here. Oh. I'm just a dog chasing a car.
Yep.
That's the visualization of what I think of with that. But anyway, last week we talked about the influence of Batman Begins and how it influenced every superhero origin that followed it that we could think of, in whether in small ways or in huge ways. And it was undeniably influential. When we were in the wake of this awesome movie, I remember a conversation that we had that both of us were concerned about, which is that this movie was so good that...
What was the point in watching movies anymore?
Well, that's a different argument. That goes back to my Watchmen thing, where my desire to become a comic book creator was ruined when I read Watchmen. But no, what I'm getting to is this movie was so good. Was it going to be a situation where every superhero movie that followed it was going to try to replicate it?
And in
tone and in tenor.
And there are movies that kind of did. Like,
yes.
Iron Man 2 lifts a lot of elements from this, I think, in terms of, you have that scene in the jail that's kind of aping the interrogation scene with Vonko and Stark. Skyfall, that we referenced earlier, definitely takes a lot of inspiration, both in visuals and in a little bit of the plot from this movie as well. So there were major blockbusters that felt the influence of this. The
approach to villains at times, none were able to do this, and a lot of them failed miserably trying. Mm-hmm. But that general concept of a Joker style villain from this movie was tried a few times. To mixed results. Skyfall pulled it off great. I will say that, yeah. They did it wonderfully because they cast the right actor in that role, because he himself had just, this movie came out just 6 or 7 months after he had wowed us with Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men, another great movie villain. But what I think I was more concerned about was tonally, that everybody was going to think now the trend was we have to make super dark movies because The Dark Knight succeeded because it was serious and dark, which, as we know, is not the case. The Dark Knight succeeded because it was good. And I was pleasantly surprised that we didn't see that, that we saw a continued variety in the genre, but I think you could make the argument that perhaps the DC Cinematic Universe ended up as dark as it did because of the success of the Christopher Nolan trilogy, and in particular, The Dark Knight. Do you think that that's the case?
I suppose you could make an argument in that way, but I also think it was a little bit of one filmmaker getting a little bit too much autonomy. Like, Man of Steel, and I know it has its critics. I get that. It's not nearly as dark and gritty as people make it out to be. It is a really good balance between grounded and hopeful, and that's because you have the two aesthetics of Zack Snyder as director and Chris Nolan as executive producer, who oversaw the story, helping to balance that out, because while Nolan's movies tend to have a dark sensibility about them as well, he's got a better sense for story than Zack Snyder ever has. I don't think that's that controversial to say, and I'm someone who kind of likes, most of Zack Snyder's movies, so it's not a anti-Snyder thing. But once Nolan's understanding of story and these characters went away, I think you saw the DCEU become what it was, because it was one guy who had a very specific Frank Miller version of these characters in mind. So I don't necessarily know that it was The Dark Knight that inspired Snyder as much as it was The Dark Knight Returns. But it may have been The Dark Knight that inspired Warner Brothers as a studio to allow
the general dark image to kind of inhabit all of their movies.
And here is the third leap out of my seat moment for me in this the first time I saw it. Because you could probably feel me just waiting for it the entire time.
Mm-hmm. What an awesome transformation too. They did this so perfectly with the
and they tease you right there with it.
A skull instead of like a kind of a hideous green kind of coloration or whatever. Just a one. It makes Two-Face a horrific figure, which I almost feel like he always should be.
Has to be, yeah.
As opposed to a
blue skin,
as you've seen before, where it's like a circus character or something,
right?
You know, it's so good. But yeah, so we were concerned about the influence that this movie would have. Still
to this day, Greg, every damn time.
Going forward, the scene where he's at the bar a little bit later, drinking, and the drink is just rolling through his face.
The whiskey comes out of the side of his mouth because he can't control half of his mouth very well, and he wipes it off, and you see it like his hand drag across the charred skin.
Yeah. So there were concerns about the influence that this would have going forward, and it really didn't. And I was going to say, I almost feel like, and I'm thankful for this, that we haven't really seen anyone try to recreate what this movie is, because you can't. And while I
even to his credit, as we'll discuss,
I would like to see someone maybe try to do something of this level. Doing it exactly like this is not going to work.
Right, and to his credit, I think even Chris Nolan himself realized that, because a lot of people, and we'll address this more in depth next week, but a lot of people I feel like who have complaints about Dark Knight Rises are upset that it wasn't The Dark Knight 2. You know what I mean? That it wasn't just The Dark Knight done over again with new villains. And they missed the point of the trilogy, which is 3 different movies in 3 different subgenres.
Telling one story. And the fact that you were never going to be able to replicate this. Yeah, it stands apart from everything else around it, not just in comic book movies. For me, for just movies in general, it's just it's. We'll talk next week, because there's another movie that I put almost on its level because of the emotional impact it has on me. But objectively speaking, there's no objective here, but from a movie making standpoint, this is the better
bullshit.
Movie.
By the way, he's burning all of the money in my view. I think he lied about only burning his half.
Yep.
Sorry.
I agree.
Go ahead.
Yes, because everything the Joker says is a lie.
Right.
It's everything about it is bullshit. He doesn't care about running the city either. This isn't mob boss Joker.
Nope.
That's just an act he's putting on because that's the character that this Russian guy wants to see or thinks he wants to see. So it's a send up of the Joker. It's encompassing all these different elements of Joker from the comics, where we've seen the Joker as the, happy-go-lucky clown. We've seen the Joker as the murdering psychopath. We've seen the Joker as a mob boss. We're getting all of that in this movie in one character who is all of those things and none of them.
Sorry, I got sucked in again. Yeah, I agree. I mean, nobody can recreate this, and to try would be foolish. And I will say it's a little surprising, because there for a little while, I know you said that what we're going to talk about next week is on the level with this, but you used to actually have Rises ahead of Dark Knight.
Yes, I did, and let me and that's for and to be honest with you, it still goes up and down for me, because I think Rises is a great movie,
right?
But I also emotionally, you can't quantify the emotional impact of something.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
yeah. I mean, look at me with The Amazing Spider-Man, for example.
Right. So, but looking at, if you watch them as a movie, The Dark Knight is better. I mean, it's a movie, The Dark Knight is untouchable for superheroes, for me. But when I watch them back to back, and I see another movie that to me is almost to that level, as far as a movie goes, but has even more emotional beats for me than this one does, because of my fandom and because of the kinds of stories that I like. I'm a sucker for the conclusion story. Mm-hmm. And I think anybody that's listened to us talk about movies knows that about me. Return of the Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie. Mm-hmm. Bourne Ultimatum is my favorite Bourne movie. I am a sucker for the I guess I'm a sucker for the happy ending, I'm a sucker for the in a lot of ways, Nick, as you know. I'm a sucker for just the sense of resolution, I guess, and especially if it's a positive resolution. So the Dark Knight Rises had certain emotional advantages built in, along with what they do with some of the characters we'll talk about then. But yes, as a movie, this is the best. It's got the best performance. It's got the best story, in my opinion. It's got the best sound and just aesthetic of any movie. It's gorgeous.
Yes,
it doesn't even
really
look.
is.
And it looks different than Batman Begins. And it looks different than Dark Knight Rises. And it looks different than anything that followed it. It's, I think it's Chris Nolan's, the best Chris Nolan movie is another one for me because I've often gone up and down with Inception in this one. But again, you can't quantify emotion. So for me, this is still number one. And it's just so hard to put into words what this franchise
Sorry.
has done. So last week we talked about how Nolan's movie, Batman Begins, redefined Batman and saved the character in terms of the mainstream.
One more batshit fan theory. I don't know if you remember this, but remember how they say that this guy's last name is Berg and he has a sick wife? And we all go, Iceberg, he must be Mr. Freeze because he has a sick wife. Do you remember that one?
No, I don't remember that at all.
Yes, there was a popular fan theory that cop was going to turn out to be the Nolan version of Mr. Freeze.
Harvey.
Just hi.
Hi. Yeah.
This led to my costume bowling costume.
Yes,
next
you
year.
dressed up as Nurse Joker.
As Nurse Joker.
Bowling.
Back in my skinnier days when I could actually acquire a nurse costume in my size. I'm sure I could now, but it would require a whole lot more fabric than it did back then.
Yes. That was the Bee Gees year for me and David, right? Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
That was the year I threatened to do a certain character from Tropic Thunder and luckily thought better of it.
Yes. Thankfully that didn't happen.
And look, a small thing on the pillow, the stained blood to imply that his wound is still giving off discharge and stuff. Just little things about this entire presentation of Two-Face. Just So Greg was trying to put a bow on this in some way,
right.
I think. And
yes,
if you've heard me talk about this for the last 2 hours almost, I don't think it's any secret. I love this movie more than I have ever loved a movie. I think it is the best movie I have ever seen. I think it is objectively the best made movie I've ever seen. Removing my Batman fandom from it, there is not a single thing I would change about it. I would rather watch this than any other movie on the face of the planet, superhero or not. I think it is not just a cut above, a league above anything the genre has ever given to us in the years prior or since.
Same. I echo that. If I think about the movies that I've watched the most in my life and the movies that I will continue to watch the most of my life, this has to be at the top. I mean, there's nothing else, and that includes other movies that I love. There's so many great movies out there, but this is the one that sticks with me the most. This is the one that I can almost quote from beginning to end within reason, paraphrase at least the dialogue. It is a masterpiece. It's maybe my favorite movie of all time as well. I think so. And if it's not, then it's next week's movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, as you heard last week, Batman Begins is my third favorite movie of all time, and this is my first. Take a wild guess what number 2 is.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying it's not The Winter Soldier?
I'm saying it's not The Winter Soldier, as much as Todd thought it was. No.
Todd, that was a good guess, though. I mean, Todd was doing good work there, because that means that Todd has been keeping up with our Hard Travelers for Hire, a series which you can all listen to when it comes back next month.
Next month, yep.
But, so just kind of putting a bow on it, I echo what Nick said. It's a movie that it's wrapped up in so much, because it's our friendship, it's the character that we both love of Batman and the mythos of Batman that we all love. It's the kinds of movies that we love to watch. This is just the most for Hard-Traveling Fanboys thing that has ever been made.
And it's the rare example of a massive build to something, because we referenced that earlier. The viral marketing, the anticipation. A build that culminates in something that doesn't just meet expectations, but blows them out of the water. And I think we have talked about so many times, Greg, how expectations can create almost a no-win scenario for these things these days. But this is the rare example of we literally we had no idea what to expect, and even though our expectations were extremely high, to have them surpassed to such a degree was nothing we could have ever foreseen.
I'm thinking about the times in my life when that's happened. I think to the first Avengers movie, which had an amazing, enormous hype and managed to exceed that hype.
Yep.
I think of something we just watched, Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega a few weeks ago at Dominion.
Yep.
Which had enormous hype going into it. And
not in terms of the quality of the show, but just the experience of it. Our first in-person WrestleMania. For me. It was a lifetime
absolutely. 100%.
A lifetime of build-up that paid off in every way, even if, the matches themselves weren't necessarily made for the greatest WrestleMania of all time. Sorry. This is, like Greg said earlier, we're seeing now the scene of the blowing up at the hospital. 100% improv on the part of Heath Ledger here, because the mechanism actually was not working. And number two, and another example of why Chris Nolan just does it better than everybody else, Chris Nolan found an empty building complex, decorated it to look like Gotham General Hospital, and then blew it up. Actually blew it up, practically. No CGI in that shot.
I've just realized one thing that could have made this movie, as hard as it is to believe, Nick, even just a tad bit better.
Jim Ross?
Well, that goes without saying. Okay. That's like the unspoken parenthetical to every statement about everything.
Right.
Possibly being better. But no, if he had still been alive at this time, if they could have gotten Jim Varney to walk on camera after the Joker walked off there and to say, I came, I saw, I got blowed up. That just would have put this even further over.
And then the fat guy is there to shift his eyes back and forth?
Shift his eyes back and forth. Yes, for the long-time listeners of the show, you may remember that we once had an Ernest off, or an Earn-off, if you will.
Mm-hmm. No, the Ornament.
The Ornament, that's right, yes. The Ornament. An Ernest tournament. So
a little
bit of a callback there.
I could just talk about how brilliant every scene is. But in this scene, when you hear him reading the lines, the Joker himself reading the lines that he's written to himself in the background, murmuring, the game, get out now.
So good. Gosh, I've got you know how that thing The Rock does when he comes out and he points to his goosebumps on his arm? That's what I've got right now.
And this is 10 years later. Nothing I've ever seen has left this lasting of an impact. And it's just, you're probably, anybody who's listened to this whole thing is probably tired of us, rolling their eyes at the level.
I'm certain that our dear close personal longtime friend Tim is tired of us masturbating this movie.
Yes. No, it's the best movie of all time. It just is. Deal with it.
So, but we've talked about it for a long, long time. We've got verbal diarrhea about it. Enough of it already. So we're going to end it right here. We, of course, are going to come back for the next part of the show with the rundown.
I think we're going to call an audible and just bring you reading and watching since we went so long on this part, if you're okay with that, Greg.
Yeah, that's fine with me. We haven't really, spoiler alert, we haven't really had time to go through the news stories and talk. And
God.
We'll give you a double dose next week.
Sorry. One more second. Let's hold on for one more scene here. Oh, this, Greg, here he is drinking the shot, as you talked about.
Getting revenge on the people who have wronged him.
But not just getting revenge. He is giving in actual Two-Face fashion, unlike fucking Tommy Lee Jones in Batman Forever, he's actually going to flip the coin. And the coin rules, because we see him let people go later. And even the ingenious one, a little bit...
The coin what, Nick?
The coin reels. And a little bit later, you're actually going to see him in the car with Maroni, and Maroni wins the flip. And he's like, but your driver didn't. And then he shoots him. Just...
Which is essential to one of those things that's essential to Hard.
You can't change it. It's why Batman Forever. One of the reasons Batman Forever's Two-Face sucks so bad. And here, like you were saying, You get the scene with Lucius and Bruce playing off that dangerous, slippery moral slope that he sees Bruce going down throughout the movie, and it's we could go on for hours.
And I want to say something right now, Nick. We both of us have been guilty at times of casting aspersions on bow ties, but I gotta say, Lucius Fox pulls off a damn bow tie.
Oh, absolutely, he does.
Well, with that being said, folks, we are going to end it here
and get a cigarette and a drink.
To this point, we've had a joyful occasion talking about it, as you probably heard. We've probably bored you to tears with just saying the same things over and over again. But we hope you stick with us. We'll have the reading and watching on the other side of the break. But we encourage you all to go out and watch this movie again if you haven't seen it in a while. Or maybe you've never seen it, God forbid.
And maybe watch it along with us. Like, if most people, I'm assuming, have seen this multiple times at this point. You know it pretty well. You don't need to necessarily hear the dialogue. Pop the subtitles on, watch it along with this podcast, and maybe our verbal fellatio will be more bearable that way. I'm not really sure.
Right. Well, regardless, your thoughts on The Dark Knight, hit us up on Twitter.
Unless you think it's not good, then you can keep that shit to yourself.
Or... well, let's give him a break this week. He's had a rough week. So you can just keep it to yourself instead of tweeting them at any...
Oh, God, now I have the image of JR with the broken rib laying in the hospital bed, Harvey Dent style.
Now, who would be his Joker?
Ooh. Oh, man. I guess it would have to be Jay White, would it not?
White. The whippersnapper, Jay White. In any event, you can tweet us at gphillips8652.
Oh, God, and there's a really bad JR...
GPHILLIPS86.
And there's a really bad JR Two-Face joke somewhere in that analogy.
Unfortunately, Nick, I thought of it earlier, and I felt bad instantly, so I didn't say it.
Yeah,
nor would I ever give it utterance.
At gphillips8652, I'm at Nick Duke 87. Nick D and Greg P, respectively, at PlaceToBeNation.com. Place to Be Nation Comics Facebook page. All those wonderful places.
All those wonderful things and places. If you want to comment and talk to old versions of us, you can go to rspwfa2.livejournal.com.
I think somebody stopped paying the bill.
Well, the archive's still there. I went there the other day, and you can go through and find comments from Nick Duke and Greg Phillips on there under our respective handles that I'll just let you all determine what they are. But anyway, stay with us through the break. When we come back, we will have reading and watching. You are listening to the Hard-Traveling Fanboys. Now you're going to listen to an advertisement for all the other great shows right here at Place to Be Nation and Place to Be Nation Pop.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hey, pro wrestling announcer Kevin Kelly here. I want to make sure you are all subscribed to all the great feeds here at Place to Be Nation. It's really easy to do. Just head to iTunes or your preferred podcatcher app today and search and subscribe to the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, which, of course, includes the full archives of the Kevin Kelly Show, the Place to Be Nation pod feed, and the Pro Wrestling Only feed. Subscribe, listen, and then rate us and leave feedback today. And be sure to give Justin your true thoughts. I mean, don't hold back. After all, he is kind of a jerk. Just listen to Scott.
Place to Be Nation's JT Rosero and Chad Campbell here. We want to let you know that we have a ton of great podcasts available to you on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and PlaceToBeNation.com. We offer them to you on two great feeds. On the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed, we bring you the Mothership, the Place to Be podcast, along with Main Event, Survey Says, the Monday Night Wars, and our monthly pay-per-view reaction show, as well as Jeff Learns Wrestling. In addition to these full-length shows, we also deliver special network podcasts and pod blasts on topics old and new.
Over on the Pro Wrestling Only feed, we dive deep inside the wrestling business with a stacked army of experts leading the way. The feed features potpourri shows such as This Week in Wrestling, Greetings from Allentown, Match of the Week podcast, and the Military Industrial Suplex. We also have shows that focus intently on certain topics like Through the Years, Worldcast, Strong Style History, Strong Style Story, and Mount Olympus. Plus, the feed has the full archives of legendary shows like Titans of Wrestling, Where the Big Boys Play, Letters from Center Stage, and Letters from Kayfabe, plus much more. And on our very popular Place to Be Nation Pop podcast feed, we offer such great shows as Talkin' Pop, the Glenn Butler Podcast Hour Spectacular, NBA Team, PTBN Play, Sunday Groove, Breaking Balls, and Lucha Undead.
As well as a veritable podcast heaven for comics fans.
With the Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Sellers Points, Todd Weber's Conversations, Geek and Sassy, and Marvel Age Podcasts.
You can find all of these current shows, plus archives of our past podcasts, including The Kevin Kelly Show, as well by subscribing to both feeds on iTunes. And while there, be sure to rate and leave feedback today. All these shows, plus others, available at PlayStation.com, where we cover pro wrestling, sports, movies, comics, plus in-depth stretch projects, and more. Be sure to support our site by using PlayStation.com/Amazon when doing your online shopping, and download our free PTB Vintage Vault Refresh ebooks via the links on our site. We also want to thank our friends at Boneheads Wing Bar in West Warwick, Rhode Island, and Fall River, Massachusetts, and thehistoryofwrestling.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr as well. PlayStation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Yeah, you're listening to the longest running weekly episodic comic book podcast in all of Place to Be Nation. Yeah.
That was awesome. That's, your Savage is usually pretty good, but that was even good by your standards, I have to say. Good job, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And I gotta say, that first half of the show, I know people, your mileage may vary on it, but we talk a lot of times about how the most fun shows to do are when we're tearing things apart. And I thought that was probably one of my favorite first halves we've ever recorded, even though it was overwhelmingly positive and repetitive, probably.
Yes, and we often talk during these off pages about how we get so absorbed in the movies that we just want to keep watching them. Mm-hmm. And I'm certainly in that situation because it's such an amazing movie. It was so fun to talk about, and I'm the same way. It was a great chance to be positive and to and that's ultimately when we started this show a long time ago. That was kind of one of the visions when we started the column even years ago is there's so much negativity in comic book culture about everything. Everything is bad.
And then 2 years in, we had a recurring feature called Gotham Sucks.
Right. So, and we're as susceptible to it as anyone.
Right.
But it's nice to be able to just talk about something you love and that means so much to you.
Sorry.
Which means... What I'm getting from that, Nick, is that we're going to have to do a No Holds Barred pod at some point.
Oh.
Not the No Holds Barred pod, though. We'll have to rebrand it to something else. But
now you want to hear some orgasmic noises? That's how you get me going right
Catch
there.
up on my blue jeans.
Just burn my hand as he disarms an armed robbery with plates of food. Anyway,
yeah. Oh, well, by the way, that reminds me of a point. The Hank Williams Jr. song that we're referencing then follows with, Lord, it's hard to be a bachelor man. Mm-hmm. And that I found to be always a rather unusual aspect of music back in the day, particularly country and soul music, in that they would refer to individuals by both their title and then man afterwards. So you had a preacher man, the preacher man talking on TV, putting down the rock and roll from Charlie Daniels. The one, bachelor man. You have the, what else would be an example? Maybe those are the only examples now I'm thinking about it. Just preacher men and bachelor.
He was the son of a preacher man.
Right. So that's something I feel needs to come back in society. The next time you come across a preacher, maybe at your local church, or you come across a man who happens to be a bachelor, walk up to them and refer to them as either a bachelor man or a preacher man. In fact, refer to the preacher man as a bachelor man and the bachelor man as a preacher man and just see what happens. And then listen to Charlie Daniels. But pre-crazy Charlie Daniels.
Indeed.
In any event, we are going to bring to you right now the longest running segment on our show, which is, of course, reading and watching.
Reading and watching. What have you been reading and watching?
Now, we are going to have probably a little bit more to say in reading and watching than we typically do. We're going to try to keep it from going too long, because we've already gone a long time tonight. But we have
now, Greg, don't be cowling away from controversial statements already.
I'm not cowling away from controversial statements. I've got controversial statements. I already made controversial statements on the show.
I can already hear the hairs bristling on your forearms. You're already the hair on the back of your neck is standing on end. You're rip raring to go. I can tell.
And that's a lot of hair, Nick.
That's a lot of hair. When Greg bristles, he bristles like a goddamn boar.
You know what I end up looking like? I end up looking like the Batman character, appropriately enough, named Trog, Bane's henchman. Remember him?
Yes, I do.
Just hair everywhere.
Yes.
Short, fat, hairy. I'm not short, but I'm fat and hairy, so it kind of covers all the ground in between. But nonetheless, and much like Trog, I will eventually be forgotten. So the big book of the week that we have to talk about here, or do you want to do the others first and then get to that last?
Yeah, so I should probably real quick we're going to do reading first, and as everyone who is part of comics fandom knows, probably. Batman 50 came out this week. So real quick, because I have actually been reading Tom King's Batman. I'm a big fan of Tom King's Batman. So before I could read 50, I had to get caught up. And so that involved me reading Batman 48 and 49, the two-part The Best Man storyline. One issue is 99% a conversation between Batman and the Joker, and one issue is 99% a conversation between Catwoman and the Joker. Both were very good. I think the Batman one was particularly borderline great, and the Catwoman was just good. Although it did play on an interesting aspect in that we always think of Batman and the Joker having this weird, relationship that the Joker, depending on the writer, may see in a quasi-romantic or brotherly-like fashion, depending how you want to go with it. But we never really think about Joker's relationship with Catwoman. He makes reference here. He was like, back in he references to Selina at one point, in the old days, you were right there alongside me and you and Harvey and Oswald, always trying to take down the Bat, always having our fun. We used to be close, Selina, whatever happened. And that's an aspect of it I never really stopped and considered. And I guess if you're going with the, some of the old Batman stories are still technically canon, then it's something that you kind of have to think about. And it was cool to see it acknowledged in that regard.
Yeah. Well, and it's a little bit harder for me to think of that because I guess I grew up with the comics that I read as a kid. That really wasn't a thing. Right. Post-Crisis, Selina was much more anti-hero than she ever was full-on 100% villain. Maybe,
and they actually talk about that a little bit in the issue where she's like, well, I never had the same goals as you guys did. My goal wasn't to destroy the Bat. My goal was always purely personal. And so they they play around with it a little bit. So it's an interesting idea to see it acknowledged if nothing else. Yeah. And the Joker, of course, in this issue plants a thought in her head that plants a seed, if you will, that we see flower fully in Batman 50, which I also read.
So do you want to go ahead and do Amazing Spider-Man now?
No, we'll save that. You'll have something else to talk about as well that I won't, and so we'll kind of balance that way.
All right. Well, obviously, as Nick alluded to, the biggest comic book of the week, what will probably end up being the biggest comic book of the year from a sales standpoint, I would assume. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I'd have a hard. It does. Yeah. I don't think Amazing Spider-Man 1 will hit with that. Marvel's done so many number ones at this point. It's kind of. It's a big deal, don't get me wrong, and it was certainly something that I celebrated, but I don't think it's going to be the
when you factor in the variance, when you factor in the hype, this is going to be the biggest selling comic of the year in all likelihood. And that is Batman number 50 by Tom King, Mikel Janin. It is, first of all, it's got a litany of variants, I believe, right, Nick? Or how many are there? Just 2, 3, 4? What is it?
What the hell if I know, man? Don't ask me that. God.
But I will say I got what I feel is clearly the best variant. And that's because this is actually the wallpaper on my phone right now. It is one of my favorite covers of any comic that I've ever seen. And that sounds hyperbolic because it's so new. and being a prisoner of the moment. But in my mind, I have juggled with the thought that this might be my favorite cover now. And my favorite piece of art by Jim Lee. It's the Jim Lee cover of Batman and Catwoman, kind of like holding each other, forehead to forehead, crying. And in Catwoman's goggles is a reflection of an upside-down Joker face. It's kind of a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing. You know, you have to really be looking for it to see it. It's just as good, and we'll get into the meat of this issue in a minute, but just it's as good a comic book image as I've seen from my favorite comic book artist. So had to find a way to get that one.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a remarkable cover. Our shop actually put the word out on Facebook. If you want one, just sign up, and he was going to order them. And so he ordered them. I got one, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful to look at for sure. Yep.
Also, it continues this recent trend of these cool variants where there's no text at the top of the cover, which I love.
Yep. Those have all been really, the ones I've seen of those have all been great.
Have all been great, yeah. Really cool. So, anyway, everybody that has been even remotely following comics knows what Batman 50 is about. This was...
And it goes without saying, like, I don't even feel the need to really preface this with spoilers, but we're going to talk spoilers here, and if you want to take an issue with that, as we'll address, don't blame us, blame DC.
Blame DC Comics.
Yeah, there you go.
If you want to blame someone. So, because they've spoiled this via the New York Times, what happens in this issue. But why is Batman 50 such a big deal? Well, this is purported to be the wedding of the century, the wedding of Batman and Catwoman. This is something that's been promoted for a year at this point.
Is it a year, actually?
I think it's been almost a year, yeah.
I'm not trying to say you're not right. I'm just trying to remember I know it was in the Rooftop storyline, and I'm trying to remember.
Rooftops was early 2017.
Well,
that was when I was still pulling it.
Right.
So this, gosh, that would have been like issue 17 or 18 or something like that, somewhere around there.
And they're bi-monthly, so like 19 months. I don't know. I'd have to do the math on that.
This has been built up for over a year, like about a year and a half. The relationship and the marriage has been built up for a year now. It's been hyped that next summer, the wedding of the century, Batman and Catwoman, get in on this. And if it hasn't been quite a year, maybe it's been 9-10 months. It's something around those lines. It's close to a year now. This has been hyped up by DC Comics with solicitations saying the wedding's going to happen. You know, what will be the ramifications when Batman and Catwoman
he popped the question in 24, so that would have been almost exactly a year, yeah, because it's 26 issues, 2 issues a month, thereabouts, so 13 months
That's
a year.
a lot of time to build up to a wedding.
Yeah.
And so they had, and again, if they hadn't announced that it would happen in issue number 50, I don't think there would be any controversy right now about this issue. But they announced that it was going to happen, and they said it would happen in solicitations, DC's marketing geniuses. They launched a promotional campaign that outpaced anything they did, I think, for Action 1000 in terms of media appearances. Tom King on Seth Meyers. Maybe it didn't surpass Action in terms of overall like ads and comics and things like that, but it certainly felt to me like the promotion outside of the comics bubble was more for this issue than it was for Action 1000.
And I wonder if, I can kind of understand that, though, because Action 1000 kind of sold itself on the creative lineup and kind of the culmination.
The milestone aspect of it.
Right, of 80 years of Superman. Whereas this is less an event and more a story, if that makes sense. Like Action Comics 1000, or not an event, let's say a celebration. Like Action Comics 1000 was a celebration of all things Superman, whereas this was
an event,
the next chapter of the story.
Right. This was hyped as an event. You can't miss this event. They did the whole wedding invite gimmick. It's the hype into it was, will the Joker break up the wedding of Batman and Catwoman? And that was kind of the story leading into this, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was a hugely hyped event that people were very, very excited for. And if you've been on social media, you have seen the various controversies revolving around this, mainly 2. One controversy is that, I don't know which order to take these in. I guess let's go with the promotional aspect first.
Mm-hmm.
So DC Comics made the decision, for better or worse, to spoil the events of Batman number 50 themselves through the New York Times, which is amazing exposure for DC, through an article that I think went farther than they expected in terms of how much it spoiled. And I think that DC has even talked about that they did not expect this article to be quite what it was. And the author of the article, the writer, has even said that he regretted the way that he wrote it. But nonetheless, they spoiled this on either Sunday night or Monday morning, the Wednesday before the.
I want to say it was Sunday, but I'm not. Don't quote me.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, so this was a bit of an issue for what it spoiled, because what it spoiled is, just kidding, folks, no wedding. So the event that we hyped up, well, it's not really happening. It's part of the story. We're going forward. We're telling the next chapter, but the rug is pulled out from under you. No wedding. So, again, without the promotional hype, people just accept this probably. In my case, I'd probably roll my eyes about it and move on about my life. Problem is, comic book shops were put in a huge bind by this because of how the event was promoted. All the extra variants, all of the prelude comics that led into this event, they actually had preludes to a freaking wedding. So people bought into that this was going to happen. And a lot of people who maybe haven't been ordering Batman bought this issue and ordered this issue because of the milestone event. Mm-hmm. I can say that because I'm one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
And when DC spoiled that this was happening,
or not happening,
rather,
right?
The people who had pre-ordered this comic, a lot of them anyway, the ones that weren't the regular readers of Tom King's Batman, were pissed off, and I would argue fairly so. And a lot of them were canceling their orders and saying they weren't going to pick them up, which put these comic book shop owners in a huge bind.
Mm-hmm.
Because now
$5 cover price.
Right, $5 cover price, unsold comic, unsold inventory. Big issue.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Nick and I have talked off the air. This is a complicated issue because you can see from a certain standpoint why DC would make this decision, Nick.
Yeah, I definitely can, because I don't remember what the first one was that did it, but I want to say like 4 or 5 years ago, Greg, you probably remember when this started to happen. Marvel started to gain a lot of mainstream publicity by going to outside media outlets. The one that springs to mind most instantly for me, just because it's a character I have a deep emotional attachment to, The View. Going on The View to reveal the Jane Foster Thor story. There have been other things since then. Big, mainstream, non-niche media outlets that they can get exposure for their stories through. And that involves, most of the time, having to give some spoilers away. Now, typically, it doesn't involve spoiling things to such a degree like DC did. But again, you covered that. There were some regrets on all sides, including on the side of the New York Times. So I don't know that we can 100% necessarily hold DC at fault there. You know what I mean?
In that regard, I agree. Here's where it's different from a little bit of what Marvel's done.
Right.
And where that differs a little bit is when Marvel's done this in the past, it's typically been to spoil something that is going to happen. Mm-hmm. I.e., there's going to be a new Thor and it's a woman. Mm-hmm. I.e., Captain America. This goes back to Captain America getting killed off in Civil War, which I think was announced on Good Morning America or something like that. Captain America's going to die, basically. It's usually this thing is going to happen, and if you buy this comic book, you will see this thing happen. The kind of deal with this is it almost felt like trying to cover their own asses to me, because they have spent months hyping this as this certain event. And I think they realized that if Bleeding Cool or whoever broke this spoiler, it was going to go viral. It was going to be nasty. They wanted to control the narrative.
Which, by the way, Bleeding Cool had been hinting around. If you read Bleeding Cool at all, which I do, I know others. Russell, for example, not a big fan, and I get that. I'm not a fan of their style of writing most of the time, but fairly or unfairly, they tend to have a lot of scoops. They have legitimate connections somewhere. I just wish they knew how to write. But anyway, the information they often have is pretty good. They had been hinting around for a long time, like 6 or 8 weeks, that the wedding wasn't going to happen. It was already out there.
Yeah, and the thing is, though, I avoid Bleeding Cool, and if you want to. It's hard, but you can avoid social media. You can avoid Bleeding Cool.
Sure.
It's kind of hard to avoid the New York Times.
No, especially when everybody, it's promoted. Like, they didn't just put the article out there. They then, DC Comics themselves
tweeted it. Yep.
Tweeted it, was pushing it out there. All those things. Yep.
And it's different when you have this thing that you've hyped to happen, and now you're spoiling the fact that it's not going to happen. There's no way for that not to be deflating for people. So. It felt like trying to cover their asses, but maybe a little bit too late, honestly. Like, if you're going to spoil it, maybe you spoil it a week out so that people have time to maybe not uproariously cause problems for the comic book shop owners. But another thing we didn't talk about, Nick, is one of the reasons perhaps for them doing this is they were afraid that people would find out the spoilers by word of mouth as they're standing in line at the comic book shop. And that could turn into a bad situation because, as you know, Nick, comic book fans, as we've learned, certain segments of comic book fans are not the most rational, calm people, right? And all you have to do is cruise Twitter for a few minutes to gather that. But nonetheless, this is all these are all contributing factors to my kind of outlook on this whole thing. The issue itself, and I hate to say this, Nick, the issue itself is almost ancillary at this point to what DC Comics made of it. And in my opinion, and listen, we've been accused in the past, both of us, and I know that, I'm sure we're going to be not violently, but what the hell is that? We're going to be completely opposite on this situation. But both of us have been accused in the past of harboring a bit of a DC bias. Which is probably true to a degree. Although I would, and you may or may not agree with this, I think yours is more pronounced than mine. I think you read more Marvel books than me, but yes. I think that we've both been much... And I have a deeper affinity for the Marvel characters in general than you probably do. Most of them, yeah. I would say. Except for the X-Men. Right, yeah. So, but this is a situation where I've been critical in the past of Marvel's publicity stunts that we've talked about on this show. Yep. I think this is beyond anything that Marvel has done publicity stunt-wise, in my opinion. Because it's so much more high-profile than Thor or Iron Man or a lot of those event comics that they were doing. It is the most high-profile character in comics, in my opinion. Even beyond Superman, in terms of at least in America. The highest selling comic book every month. I think the way that they approached it did Tom King no favors, did the artist no favors, did the character no favors, did the company no favors, because it set unrealistic expectations and it baited and switched in a way that I think DC has done a fairly good job of avoiding in the modern era. In other words, DC has not had the reputation, at least in my mind, of promising an event and not delivering it. For better or worse. Flashpoint was going to reset the DC universe. Bad idea. They did it anyway. The Rebirth is going to reset the DC universe. They did it. They carried it through. Doomsday Clock. A lot of controversy. To a certain extent on Rebirth. There are still aspects of Rebirth, even in that first issue, that were never really paid off. But the thought is that they're going to happen, i.e. waiting on Doomsday Clock and whatnot. But in general... the Aquaman Mirror marriage, that was the engagement that happened in the pages of DC Rebirth #1 that hasn't happened? Right. Well, I haven't been reading Aquaman lately, so I couldn't tell you. But again, they didn't hype up an event, the wedding of Aquaman and Mera, and not follow through on it, did they? That I'm aware of.
I mean, I guess
they showed a glimpse of the future happening
and an engagement.
But again, they did not say the wedding of Aquaman and Mera will be an Aquaman number 25.
Fair enough.
Be sure to buy Aquaman number 25 because Aquaman and Mera are going to get married. Mm-hmm. They didn't promise that. Nor did they do, like, even going back, I'm sure it happened in the 90s because I can't remember all that. But the death of Superman was the death of Superman, complete with a funeral. Yes, he was coming back, but they did a funeral. They did The World Without a Superman. They did the Reign of the Superman. They followed through on it. Batman, broken back. Right. He's out for 6 months to a year, whatever.
Right. I get your point.
So the point being, you know what I'm saying. They promised an event. They didn't deliver it. And regardless of what's in the issue itself, that was going to be an uphill battle. So let's talk about the issue itself.
Okay.
I've been talking for a long time, Nick. Go ahead and your thoughts on Batman 50.
First of all, before we delve into the issue, let me respond a little bit. And I think this is the root of why we disagree so much about the way this was handled. I don't think it was handled perfectly by any means. I'm not seeking to absolve DC Comics from all blame here. But I think we come at it from two fundamentally different perspectives. You come at it from the perspective that we should be able to come at it from. Like, honestly, in a perfect world, your perspective would be the correct one, in that DC Comics said something was going to happen, so we should expect it to happen. I came at it from the standpoint of, I will believe it when I fucking see it. And so, all along the way, I never actually thought it was going to happen. And I guess...
Expound upon a little bit why that is. Why you never believed it would happen.
Because for years, the narrative we have heard is that comics publishers think that married characters are unrelatable, and they will not take that risk with a major character. It is the reason that was given for undoing the Spider-Man marriage. It is the reason that was given for not even doing the Batwoman marriage. It would have been much less high profile, albeit I get there was the LGBT angle to that. I know that probably played a role as well, but I'm saying if they weren't going to do it with Batwoman, I had zero faith they were going to do it with Batman. And I know instantly what your counterpoint is, but they brought back married Superman. My argument there is...
The exception does not prove the rule, or the exception proves the rule, rather.
My argument there is, I think a married Superman, and I think you would agree with this, fits far more into the traditional interpretation of Superman and who he is than a married Batman does. I think you can have Superman be married and still be Superman. I also think, personally, I believe you can have married Batman and him still be Batman. I am not advocating for the idea that you can't. But I am saying that I never believed that DC Comics believed that, is my difference.
Well, and to your point, Oliver Queen and Black Canary were married. They're not. Aquaman and Mera, I guess, haven't gotten married. I really don't know what they are, honestly.
They were, and then they're not, and I don't, we'd have to ask Todd about that. They're not right now, I'll put it that way. They are not. 100% not.
Various committed couples in Marvel as well. Undone, Scott and Jean, obviously.
Kitty and Colossus, most notably.
Kitty and Colossus, Peter and Mary Jane. It's just something that these publishers have avoided, and so I don't think that it's unreasonable to feel the way that you do either. And I will acknowledge that I came at it from a level... I came at it from a place of optimism, and you came at it from a place of cynicism, but well-founded cynicism.
Right. It's the wrestling thing, like we talked about offline. And again, not saying that baiting and switching is good, but I am so used to my entertainment to having the hook baited and then it switched that, like, I'm not really shocked or surprised when it does that anymore. I'm not thrilled about it, don't get me wrong. I absolutely wish they had gone through with it. But my expectation picking up Batman 50 was never they are going to get married in this book. I don't care how many times DC said it. The solicitations didn't matter to me. Like, their promotional campaign didn't matter to me because I never bought it.
And I guess for me, I have not gotten accustomed to that in comics as much as I have in wrestling. it should bother me that it's so predictable that two guys are wrestling each other and they're in different feuds, and then their respective dancing partners will come out, and then it'll turn into a tag team match playa.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't bother me. I'm just like, oh, well, I kind of saw that coming. I expected it. But in comics, I think since I came back in 2002, I really haven't experienced that a lot, where I've been reading a comic book series or even picked up a comic book expecting something and then had it completely pulled out from under me in the course of reading it. And I think that can be pulled off in the context of a greater story. Swerves are good. Swerves are fine. You need swerves. But I think that this is the first time, and maybe there's one that I'm blanking on. This is the first time I can remember from my just personal experience of buying a comic since I came back in 2002. Happened a lot when I was a kid, but where I bought a comic expecting something
mm-hmm.
and didn't get anything that was, or not that I was expecting, but bought a comic on the premise of what it was sold as to me, and got something that wasn't not of quality, but something that was not what was promised in the slightest.
How about this? I've read most of the major Marvel events of the last decade, and you haven't. And I can count maybe like 2 that followed through with an ending. A legitimate conclusion that you would naturally be led to reading the story.
And that's a fair, I'm thinking back now, and I guess it makes sense because
Civil War didn't. Civil War 2 didn't. Secret Empire didn't, as good as it is beforehand. Really, the only major Marvel event that I've read of the last decade that follows through on the promises that the story sets out is Secret Wars, which is fantastic. I think it's one of the best Marvel events of all time because of that.
Yeah,
but I guess I've been exposed to this bait and switch more than you have.
The concept of Marvel coming out and saying, this is going to have universe-shaking ramifications, then it doesn't.
And it doesn't, yeah.
So I can see that. But yeah,
I just look at them as janky promoters, to call the name of that that god awful Mike Epps movie from a few years ago that most people probably don't even remember. They're shifty, they're carnival barkers. They are 1970s regional wrestling promoters is what they are to me. They scream from the mountaintops about, how many times, Greg, have we made fun of the all caps exclamation point solicits that are never as drastically important as they're made out to be? It's why I read solicits to see who creative teams are and when tentative release dates are, and the actual text of them I roll my eyes at mostly, because they're never, granted, not to this degree. I get what you're saying about how they specifically said this is going to happen and then it doesn't, but solicits never are accurate. At least in terms of conveying meaning and impact. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's true.
So,
that's fair.
So yeah, just that. I guess that's to set the stage. I came at it more open-minded into the issue because I, one, didn't believe it was ever going to happen in the first place, so it didn't necessarily throw me completely off that it wasn't happening, as disappointing as it was. And two, I've also been reading the entirety of Tom King's run up to this point, and enjoying it immensely for the most part. There have been some lulls, I'll acknowledge that, but most of the stories I have thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah, and that's another aspect of our leaning into this issue. Our different approaches to how we took the spoilers, which I took the spoilers very badly. I'll admit that. I was not pleased with it. I'm still not pleased with it, honestly, just because of the marketing was a big factor in that. And also, there's an element of safeness and been there, done that to what they're doing right now for me. And that's fine. Most Batman writers are safe. And you can tell great Batman stories being safe. And by the end of it, it may be less safe. But nonetheless, I'm kind of covering the issue itself with that. But I also approached it from somebody that has not been reading Batman regularly. Actually, there was something of a pull list snafu that kind of messed me up with my Batman collection early on in Tom King's run. And after that, I would pick up a few issues here and there and could not keep up because I had missed a couple issues that disrupted my collection. And I just kind of was like, I was already getting in the process of getting months behind on everything. So I just gave up. But the other thing is I did read the first 3.5 arcs, I think, of Tom King's Batman.
So you had the Gotham, I Am Gotham.
I Am Gotham.
And then you had Night of the Monster Men.
Night of the Monster Men, which I don't blame Tom King for the record.
No, nor should anyone, really. And then you had I Am Bane and I Am Suicide.
I Am Suicide and I Am Bane. And I don't know that I finished whatever the second one was.
I Am Bane, I think.
Yeah, I think that was when my collection started skipping. And
Volume 3 is I Am Bane, so that would have been...
And I read Rooftops, wherever that fell, which was a 2-issue story with Batman and Catwoman that was my comic book of the year last year at the Halfies.
I'm looking at it right now. So I Am Bane Rooftops would have been directly in between I Am Bane, or I Am Suicide, and then you would have had the Rooftops, and then I Am Bane.
Yes, and I read the beginning of I Am Bane, and I had a couple, and to that point in Tom King's Batman, I can't say that I hated the book, I didn't. I did not hate it at all. However, I mentioned this on the show, I think, I didn't feel compelled to go back and read the issues that were skipped in my pull list because it just wasn't enthralling the way that other books on my pull were at that time. And I was getting behind on everything anyway. But the problems that I had with Tom King's run, I didn't see going away. But because that many issues in, you're talking 16, 17 issues in to a run, you get kind of a feel for what it's going to be like.
Yeah, for sure. And I will say that, like, you've had some little two-parters or one-shots, like, for example, Brave in the Mold with Swamp Thing, that kind of feel just standalone within the run. But for the most part, I think the run has had a consistent tone from I Am Gotham up through now. The stories have been structured in similar fashions. The characters read similar ways. So, like, if you weren't a huge fan of those first 18 or so issues, I can't say that there's necessarily anything in there that's going to change your mind, other than perhaps I think War of Jokes and Riddles is one of the best Riddler stories. His Riddler is, like, next level to me.
And that's one that we may have to do a long book hunt on at some point, because I am interested in reading that, because I've heard so many wildly different opinions on it from a lot of different people whose opinions I respect. Russell on the positive side, and some of my friends on Twitter on the negative side that I've heard from. So, it's kind of an interesting book that I think we should examine at some point. But the one thing that I consistently loved was his Catwoman and how her relationship with Batman was. Even if there were little things about it that bugged me, how they call each other Bat and Cat. Yeah, didn't like that.
Yeah, me
but I like the fact that, and really the fact that he was exploring it, because nobody has explored it, with the exception of a brief sojourn from Paul Dini around just before Batman R.I.P. And then other than that, nobody's really explored it since Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee on Hush, who did it to me the best of anyone. And I was really excited that Tom King was exploring this. The problem that I had was the pacing was a little slow, even for my tastes. I love slower reading comics, but more character focused comics. But it was, at times, it just felt like I was in molasses. And the other problem that I had that is going to tie into this issue is I really did not like his Bane. And Bane's a character that I like a lot, that I think is the most misused Batman villain, maybe of all of them over the years. But maybe I have an unrealistic vision of Bane that will never be realized. I don't even know. But I just know that it wasn't what Tom King did with him in those two story arcs, particularly I Am Suicide, which I thought had a lot of issues. But so I gave up at that point, basically. And even though, and I keep it up kind of through you talking about it occasionally, I would kind of keep up with the Batman and Catwoman relationship and how it was evolving and how they were exploring the different angles of could they be together and things like that. And I thought that was cool. I thought that was stuff that I would be interested in reading because, again, people have kind of shied away from that in the last decade. There really kind of wasn't much of a romantic subplot for Bruce during the Scott Snyder run, because it was much more about his personal identity than it was about his relationships with outside individuals. So, so I went into this not having the context, admittedly, of the build-up. However, I think it's interesting because I feel like the reactions to this book have been divided almost into two camps. It feels like the people who have been reading who've been reading Tom King's Batman to this point love the issue. And it feels like the people like me that bought the issue because it's this landmark event and maybe could draw them back into Batman did not like the issue.
Did not like being a...
I can't say hate. I can't.
Really? Okay.
I can't say hate the issue, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But did not like it. So, do you think that's fair to say, Nick? Is that a fair divide?
Yeah, I feel like it's that way. You know, I perused Reddit a little bit, and there were a lot of people on there who were saying that they had been reading Tom King's run and that they hated the issue. But I always feel like Reddit is like the cesspool of the internet, almost. You know what I mean? Like,
I feel the way about Twitter.
Twitter and Reddit, I mean, they're very similar in that regard. Either way, though, it's going to be the most vocal minority. You know what I mean? Or not necessarily minority in terms of opinion, but I'm talking about like the most vocal corner of fandom that is going to scream and yell about anything. And more often than not, they're going to find something negative to yell about than there is positive. So I don't necessarily know that online sentiment is always the best genuine gauge of these things, but I think your assessment is fairly accurate, though I would say from what I've seen, it seems like there is also a small camp of people who have been reading the run who didn't like the issue.
Yeah, and that's fair to say. I haven't encountered a bunch of people, and maybe there are some that haven't been reading the run
and liked
bought the issue and liked it.
Yeah.
I will say I don't think it works as a standalone issue.
I will 100% agree with that. Like it.
And I think that there is so the one of the things holding me back from saying I absolutely hate it, because there's the chance that I could have gone there because I don't think it's well crafted as a standalone comic book. But one of the things that can hold me back from that is, and I guess I like to close with the positive thing, but I'll open with a positive thing here.
The art?
For me, the art is
amazing.
I mean, if you're looking for we had it in a year.
DC
Action Comics 1000 and Batman 50, which are two of the best looking superhero comics you will ever find anywhere.
Regardless of your feelings on the actual content of the issue, DC should, a year from now, reprint this in a coffee table format with removable posters. Just remove the dialogue from it. All those, they're essentially pin-up pages. Yeah. They should release a legitimate, like, pin-up version of this for retail that you could take the pages out and actually pin up, because every notable DC Comics artist working for the company today, and many who aren't even really that active for the company now, have a page in this book that depicts their version of the Batman-Catwoman relationship, and it's awesome.
It's amazing. And that's to say nothing of the regular art from Mikkel Janik, which is beautiful.
Yeah, but I mean, the showcase here is the guest stars. I'll go so far as to say this book is so well drawn that there's even Frank Miller art in it, and I didn't hate it.
Same thing. Dude, it's the best Frank Miller art
I have a theory about that.
I have seen since the 90s.
And I have a theory about that. It's one page. It's one page that he could take his time on, that he probably knew for months was coming, and he had plenty of time to work on it. One page.
And it encapsulates all these different eras of Batman and Catwoman. We see the Jim Ballant 90s busty Catwoman. We see the classic 60s and 70s Catwoman. We see the Darwin Cook Catwoman. It depicts. I'm just thumbing through this right now and looking at some of these pinups. We've got Jose Luis Garcia Lopez,
Becky Cloonan, Amanda
artist.
Connor, Greg Capullo, notably.
Frank Miller, Neil Adams.
I'm just pulling some off the top of my head, because I remember those are the ones I remember very well.
Neil Adams, Lee Bermejo,
freaking Tim Sale. The one guy who shakes up the format by actually doing panels, and I loved it. Tony
Daniel,
yes.
David Finch,
Jason Fabok doing the old purple Catwoman costume.
Oh my gosh, yes. Raphael Albuquerque, Adam Kubert.
Jim Lee recreating a scene from Hush.
Oh, God. And then, oh my God, Jim Lee. that image redrawn from Hush is just, you want to talk about striking at the heart of me from my emotional attachments. You get Ty Templeton doing an animated series take. You get Joel Jones, as I mentioned, David Finch, Greg Capullo, Lee Weeks with maybe one of the most startling images in the book, the all-black background where their faces are really the only sources of light.
Yep.
Incredible stuff.
Yep.
So artistically, this is a masterpiece.
This
really is just...
I will go so far as to argue, from a sheer artistic showcase standpoint, it's a stronger artistic showcase than Action 1000 was. Because the art is the show here. The story itself is pretty bare bones. The focus for the majority of the book is, here's the art.
Here's the art, yep. So that is the most positive thing I can say about this, is it is one of the best looking superhero comics you will ever see in your life. It's just forgetting about storytelling of the art, just the pure visual aspect of it. It's just the only thing missing from this is Alex Ross.
Yeah.
You know, I mean it's just that good. Yeah, so I've praised that a lot. So the other thing maybe that keeps me from holding it back is I could sense the genuine emotion in it.
Yes.
I believe that Tom King put his heart and soul onto the page here and really tried to make you feel for Bruce and Selina, which I did. And
especially Selina, which was surprising to me. Because, you know, like, having the spoilers out of context and then reading the issue, I was expecting to hurt for Bruce in a way that I did, but not to the degree that I expected to. And I did not expect to hurt for Selina the way I did reading it. Yes.
There's particularly a sequence of pages when she is being manipulated by Holly Robinson in the car.
Which we don't that reveal doesn't come until later. Yeah.
But the way that her eyes shift, as drawn by Mikkel Janin, tells the story and breaks my heart in a way that I wasn't expecting. And I feel like it... Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just saying, the emotional... Even if I'm not the biggest fan of the actual writing in this issue, the emotional resonance is there.
And for me, it was the sequence of panels with her sitting on the rooftop by herself, and you see the tears, like, streaming down her face behind the veil. I was like, man, that hit me. That hit me hard in a way, and it actually was the second moment of the issue that hit me, and we'll talk about it in a minute. It's unrelated, but I think you know which one it is, probably.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a moment with him, and yeah.
Yep.
In Wayne Manor.
Yep.
So I did feel the emotion, and it keeps me from saying that I hated the issue, but I still didn't like it. And I think that I wouldn't like it regardless of the spoiler. I think that I would probably overcome whatever foibles I had with the writing if the payoff was there at the end of them getting married. I'd probably say, you know what, they got married, that's awesome. Let's, maybe the execution could have been a little bit better. This book has a weird, for a guy in Tom King who's so cerebral and so thoughtful, I think, regardless of my issues with his pacing, I've never had an issue with the level of thought that goes in all of his comics. This is a weirdly tell, don't show comic. And what I mean by that is a lot of the stuff that is done here comes off as corny in a way that I was not expecting. For instance, I'll go ahead and say I don't like the split panels at the end. I think it's too cutesy for me. It does not. I think it's not necessary.
You're talking about the dual, like,
both of them jumping off the building in different directions.
Yeah,
they're going in different directions. Like,
they're going in different directions, but handling their grief in the same way. Like, I liked that touch.
Yeah. See, for me, I looked at it and I rolled my eyes at it. I thought, man, that was unnecessary. You could have told that same. I got the point from the emotion because they basically spelled it out in these letters that they wrote to each other, which is my biggest problem with this issue. Because while I said that I love the emotion, there is a level of suspension of disbelief for me. Both of them simultaneously writing letters about the exact same things about each other. Did not like it. I thought it was too literal. It was too explaining to the audience and beating me over the head with what was coming, I thought. And beating me over the head with they see things from a different perspective and maybe they can't be together after all. I also didn't like that. That was another aspect that I didn't like, is that tried and true trope of if he's happy, he can't be Batman. And I feel like over the course of a year of storytelling, maybe you could have, I don't know, addressed that at some point. But nonetheless, I have issues with that. I didn't like the letters to each other, and I didn't like the split panel at the end. So that, for me, those are the main issues that I have with it. Just from outside of the fact that I think I would have liked to have seen. I'm not going to say they should have gotten married here, because I can't tell Tom King how to tell his story. I'm saying that if it was going to be marketed the way it was, then they should have gotten married here. And I also do feel that at this point, I have seen the will they, won't they, and I have seen the they come close but they can't commit, and I've seen it done better. And in my opinion anyway, people may disagree with that, but I was hoping that they would get married, even if it's not a long-term thing, because it's different and it's not been done at least since the 70s and Earth 2. And it's something that would allow for storytelling possibilities. Even if it's not long-term, they break up, they divorce, whatever, and they figure out it isn't going to work. It was something new and something fresh in a character that, honestly has had almost every angle of him explored over the last 70 years. Okay. I know that's a lot to unpack, so yeah. I didn't mean to go all into that many different directions.
You're good. The letters, let's start there. I honestly didn't like the Bruce one very much. I think it's because I'm married to such a very different, a very specific interpretation of Bruce as this stoic figure. And I understand
who struggles with his emotions at times.
Part of this story is him overcoming that, but it did feel like he didn't just overcome it, but that he mastered them all of a sudden.
He became Lord Tennyson
in the writing of this letter. But one thing that I did, to me reading it, I know you said that it, was beating you about the head with the foreshadowing that this wasn't going to happen, and I didn't really get that from Bruce's. From Bruce's, I took it from the perspective of a cynic who is starting to believe that he can have positive feelings, that he is genuinely beginning to come out of the other side.
That's fair.
And Selina's almost read the opposite, where it was Selina, it starts in this positive direction, and as you're reading it, for me, it started to get this impending sense of doom. As I'm reading it and going along, I'm like, oh, man. And, I'm starting to feel, again, somewhat for Bruce, but honestly for her, because I can actually, as I'm reading her letter, I can understand the pain that character is going through as she is reasoning all this out.
I can agree. I agree with that. Actually, I agree with that. I think that's where the emotion of the issue comes from for me, not for Bruce, but from Selina and from that scene with Alfred and Bruce.
And so I'll say I really liked the Selina letter, and I wasn't as high on the Bruce one. So I'll half agree with you on the letter thing. You didn't touch on the Alfred scene. Good God, it hit me right in the gut. There are few things in Batman comics that can emotionally affect me the way a Bruce and Alfred bonding moment can, or the way a Batman and Jim Gordon bonding moment can. And this delivered to me one of the best I've seen in recent years in terms of, Bruce trying to be that standard Bruce where he doesn't really want to make this emotional plea at first. He's kind of just Alfred, if you don't have anything else to do, if you wouldn't mind, if you wanted to be my witness, that would be great. And Mikhail Janin is drawing it, and you see Alfred's face, and then Bruce, you see him look up at him, and Bruce sees Alfred's face, and that causes Bruce to finally get some emotion out. And he's like, it's always been you and me. You've always been here for me. And I wouldn't be able to do any of this without you. And in that moment, you see Alfred embrace him. And I took it not as, groom and best man, but as father and son, which has always been the way I've read that relationship. So, and that moment worked huge for me and probably contributed to my overwhelming enjoyment of the issue. Again, on the dual panels thing, I liked that. Thought it was cool. Set up the fact they're going in different directions, but are still alike in more ways than they are different. And that, I guess, sets us up.
And the other aspect of, to approach the letters, I agree about Selina's, but I actually thought the fact that hers and Bruce's mirrored each other so much took me out of it a little bit, honestly, because I was like...
And see, there are various... Again, it's one of those things... The whole, where do we meet? That was a part of... They've argued about that conversation recurringly throughout the book.
I actually remember that, because that was back in Rooftops.
And then there's, even been conversations about, what did you notice first about me? And, both of them saying the eyes. There are aspects of the letters that have been seeded throughout the entire run.
Okay.
So, the letters probably... were always going to work better for me than they were for you.
Right. And I think for somebody just picking up the issue, it came off cheesy.
Sure.
And so, that I can see that.
The Holly Robinson scene in the car absolutely is playing off of specifically the Joker story that just got told in 49, where Joker plants the seed of that idea. Selina is able to overcome it because it's the Joker saying it, and who's going to listen to the Joker? But I think then, hearing her best friend also say it lends the idea a new level of credence. And then when she is trying to reconcile that idea with the idea that she's actually becoming a better person and that, there is a degree of selflessness about her now, where once she was all about self, I can somewhat understand the reasoning for the characters to not go through with it. Because it had been addressed. Yes, they had brought that thought had been brought up before. And it felt like they had moved past it. But to have such two different, disparate voices voicing it all over again, I can understand why that would shake Selina. And it's why, ultimately, one thing we haven't talked about, because I've read the entire run, because I've been here for this whole story, the last page works huge for me in a way that I'm positive it doesn't work for you.
Yeah, it didn't for me. And the last page, of course, is the reveal that the events in Tom King's Batman run have largely been orchestrated by Bane, as he is running what appears to be a cabal of villains who are
not just villains.
With regards to
Gotham Girl?
Yeah,
and
the revelation that apparently Gotham Girl is a villain.
And Skeets.
Skeets of Booster Gold? I didn't notice him on that page.
Yep. Go to the last...
Well, they've played with the idea of an evil Skeets in the... God, that sounds horrible.
But yeah, Gotham Girl, Skeets, and Flashpoint Batman.
Oh my, yeah, that's the other thing, Flashpoint Batman. So there's a lot of unanswered questions here. They played as far back as 52, which, God, this is going back over 10 years at this point, but back in 52, they played around with the idea of an evil Skeets that was manipulating Booster Gold. And so that is interesting. I will say that. I didn't even see him on the panel. I guess I completely glanced over. I saw Flashpoint Batman.
My theory on the evil Skeets thing is not so much that Skeets is evil. The story that called The Gift that immediately preceded The Best Man that involved Booster Gold going back in time to give Batman the greatest wedding gift, which he thought would be a day with his parents to experience what life could have been like, and he winds up screwing up the timeline, and so you get this version of Bruce that is perfectly content with his life, and the world essentially is a terrible place as a result of it. And so my thought process there is that Skeets foresees terrible things in the future as a result of a content Batman and is making a marriage of convenience with these other villains. Is my thought. I could be wrong on that.
Flashpoint Batman going to be really interesting to see how that's explained.
That is actually the one on the page I have the biggest problem with. Because
Why is that?
they literally had Bruce meet Flashpoint Batman in the button, and he told him verbatim, "Don't let this be your life. Go and be happy."
A lot of things yet to be discovered here, but to your point, what you said, like a lot of people I have seen say the issue didn't work for me, but the last page reveal was exciting. I'm interested to see where it goes, and to a degree, I can say the same. And then I am interested to read on Wikipedia and elsewhere what happens going forward, the broad strokes. But it absolutely did nothing to make me want to continue reading Tom King's Batman.
Now,
which I think was the premise of it.
Now,
and the idea of it, by the way, is it appears to be an emotional Nightfall.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Where Nightfall, for those who don't know, was a story in the early 90s where Batman is physically broken by Bane. And It's not just the breaking of his back. It is putting him through
a gauntlet, essentially.
A gauntlet of his worst enemies.
So, but by the time that he reaches Bane, there is no way he was ever going to conceivably defeat Bane. He
has no chance. He's been broken physically. He's been broken, and also he was already dealing with mental exhaustion because he'd been pushing himself after the death of Jason Todd.
Right.
So here, Bane goes a different route. He wants to emotionally break Batman. So at least that's the implication. We're drawing a lot off of one page, but the implication is that his plan has been to emotionally break Batman. One thing, though, there's a couple reasons why this it should be exciting to me, because Nightfall is one of my favorite formative comic book stories. It's also Bane is one of my favorite Batman villains.
Real quick before you dive into that, I just want to say that one aspect of this that I like about the last page, before we talk about your concerns with it, is it uses a story device that you and I are both big fans of, and that we've kind of advocated in various fantasy, booking over the years, in that it provides the reader with knowledge that the characters themselves don't have.
Right.
We know what's going on. Batman and Catwoman don't. And to me now, there is a legitimate emotional interest on my part of seeing what happens and how they respond to it when they gain that knowledge and how they gain that knowledge. So, yeah, I would say that the last page, it doesn't ultimately make up for the fact they didn't get married, but I am now far more interested in seeing the fallout of this than I was after reading the New York Times piece, which just left me with disappointment and no interest. This leaves me with disappointment and yet an interest.
And I think for me, it's Tom King's Bane, who I haven't liked to this point.
Right.
In a couple of ways. It is, you're dealing with this emotional breaking of Batman, which again is not unprecedented. It's not reinventing the wheel in any way. We've seen Batman be emotionally broken before. He's born from being emotionally broken. There's also another aspect of this that I saw in all transparency brought up online, but I thought was a good point. What would be the advantage as a villain of Bruce going full Batman and being broken to the point where he gives up being happy? If the idea is that being happy will make him stop being Batman or be Batman less effectively, shouldn't that be what the bad guys want, is for him to be happy and not be Batman effectively, instead of now he's going to be beating the shit out of criminals?
Well, from Bane's perspective, Bane has been embarrassed at the hands of Batman. He has been...
Right.
Bane has endured humiliation and emotional torture in his mind at the hands of Batman. He doesn't want Bruce to be happy. Like, the ramifications it has for other people, fuck them. Like, from Bane's perspective...
But from their perspectives, from all the other people that are working, why would they want a more... Particularly the bad guys. Not talking about Gotham Girl or Flashpoint Batman or Skeets even, but talking about the villains who we're seeing on this page. Let me open up this page. I can't even remember who all... Maybe I'll answer
Psycho Pirate, who is a henchman of Bane in this incarnation.
Subservient to Bane.
Riddler and Joker. Joker, the Joker is going to do something in this story, I am convinced, that is just like out of left field, because that's the way the Joker is handled by and large. Like, there's ultimately going to be some sort of reveal that he went along with it for some reason, not, and we'll figure out what that is as we go. Ventriloquist, I have no idea. Other than the fact that, was he not involved on the little mini Suicide Squad team that Batman put together, and perhaps feels some sort of retribution towards Batman for that?
Yeah, but again, would it not feel like, I don't know, maybe so. But Hugo Strange and the Riddler as well.
To a larger point, though, I think the justification is this: Batman as a concept, he is at his most effective not when he is full Batman, but when he has stricken that perfect balance between Bruce and Batman. If he goes full Batman, as the tease is going to happen, he's going to make mistakes. He's going to become overly aggressive. He is going to lose the trust of the city that he has worked so hard to attain, which is only going to cause him more emotional pain in the long run, I think.
You may have just sparked a brief bit of optimism from me. Do you think it is possible, dare I give DC enough credit for this, is it possible that this is what leads to the status quo in Doomsday Clock, which takes place in the near future, where the city has turned on Batman?
That's a possible. I didn't even think about that, but that's definitely possible. And I would think that would be a route you might want to explore. But I think it's going to lead to a Batman who is more unhinged than we've seen him in a while. And no, I'm not suggesting that unhinged Batman is not something that we haven't explored before. We certainly have. But I'm always a sucker for it. So that also explains part of my willingness to accept this story. But I think the story now is Bruce pushed to the brink, pushed to his absolute limits of being more Batman and almost fully abandoning Bruce Wayne, and having to come back from that and see what it does to him. And ultimately, as we've discussed offline, I think that journey is something that Selina is also going to see, and I believe now. And remember, I didn't believe it beforehand. And I'm not saying I think necessarily they're going to get married. But I think she will see the impact of not having her is not worth the risk, or is worth the risk of being with him. And there will be a long-term Batman-Catwoman relationship that comes out of this. That is my genuine belief at this point. But that plays into another aspect of this that I think you have an issue with. The fact that it has now been revealed that this is merely the midpoint of what is going to be a 100-issue Batman story.
Yeah. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of long comic book runs for creators.
Me too.
Particularly if it's good. My issue is not Tom King writing Batman for 100 issues. Even if it's not necessarily my cup of tea.
Right.
My issue is that it will take 100 issues to tell what's really not that complicated of a story, in my opinion. Catwoman and Batman love each other, and regardless, let's take marriage out of the equation. Catwoman and Batman agree to have a relationship with one another. Again, we've seen it before in the past. There was an extensive run in the mid-'80s where they're in a relationship. And we've seen it in Hush. We've seen it in Paul Dini's run. Mm-hmm. And none of those stories lasted 100 issues. And granted, they all ended with them breaking up and going their separate ways. But I think my problem with this is Tom King has a very slow-paced run. I think even he would admit that. Mm-hmm. Even people that love his run would admit that.
Yes.
That's part of the appeal.
Absolutely, yeah.
You are asking an awful lot to get people just to buy a 50, like a 20. You said the proposal was in what issue?
24.
You don't have to look it up.
24.
So 24. So you're talking about 26 mm-hmm. issues. Well, let's say 25 issues of build, mm-hmm. plus the 6 prelude to the wedding issues.
Right.
So somewhere around the neighborhood of 30.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't read any of those, and I didn't feel like I missed a single thing.
30 build-up issues not counting annuals,
Okay.
to the wedding. That's a lot of build up to anything.
Right.
And then
I think
to say it's not happening now, but by God, if you stick around for another 50 issues, we might get there. That's just asking an awful lot to me. That's a long time.
The only thing there is I think it's a bit reductive to say that it was exclusively 25 issues of build to the wedding, because there were other things going on. It's not like it was 25 issues of them, ordering a cake
buying
or whatever.
tuxes, right.
Yeah, like, that happened. There were aspects of that, but there were also active plots going on, and plots that explored...
because I read the Prelude to the War of Jokes and Riddles, that story is framed around Bruce trying to get rid of baggage so that Selena knows what she's getting into.
Right.
Which is part of the build to the wedding.
It is,
So,
but then there's also... But, like, it's part of the build to a wedding, but it's also got this pretty, elaborate plot in there.
Right, within it. I'm not suggesting that that's all it is. Obviously, there's more going on.
And you also...
The same way that the build to the Sinestro Corps War wasn't just the Sinestro Corps War is going to happen.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that happens in there.
Right.
But it happens, and they move on to the next thing, which is Blackest Night.
And I
With
guess...
Tom King, it's like the wedding is what we are... I'm going to tell you this long story as we lay in bed here to let you know what you're getting into, which is coming down the line. Okay, that happens. Now we got to get through timey-wimey stuff. We got to pick out a best man.
Talia.
We got to deal with my worst enemy coming back from the grave.
You got a Talia,
all this stuff's happening.
You got a Talia storyline in there as well.
Talia storyline. All this stuff's happening, obviously. But the overarching story seems to be heading to a destination. If you're looking at it like a graph or like a chart, you're seeing a line graph that's going up in a circle. And then it's heading down to this certain end point. Well, now you're saying, nope. And now you send the line back up again. And it's like before ever actually touching where it was initially going. So it's like, it's kind of for me anyway, it feels like 100 issues is a lot to tell this story, in my opinion. Because again, I've seen people tell really compelling Batman Catwoman stories in a much shorter time and even leave them in a position of being in a relationship for a brief, granted for not as long as I would have liked necessarily.
And see, there's that. I mean, yes, they are taking their time, but if the end result is that you get more time, more issues put out where Batman and Catwoman's relationship is a thing and it's being explored, isn't that ultimately something we want?
To a degree, but when half that time is spent with them breaking up and then coming back together and breaking up again, like, I don't know. To me, this issue, this feels to me, and I guess this is the best way I can explain it, this feels like an extended version of that one issue of Hush where Batman decides that he can't trust Selina completely, and they split up. And I'm like, okay, I've seen that told in God, Hush was a 12-issue story, right? It's 11 issues, something like that. 12, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
One issue of the breakup. Now you're stretching it into this whole thing, and it also is compounded by the fact that I think Scott Snyder's run was entirely dedicated to disproving the notion that Batman cannot be both happy and Batman.
I agree with that, but I also think that each writer doing their own thing is kind of something that we've...
Right. If you're starting from scratch. I don't think that if you're part of what... Tom King is not just taking over a character and rebuilding it from the ground up. He's taking a character that is built in place and has a certain motif about him. And you can change that, and you can evolve that if you choose to. Certainly. But, again, I think it's also fair to criticize when it's plowing over ground that is reductive to the character. And that's what I feel that this is actually moving Batman back in maybe a way that was inevitable.
But I don't...
Doing it in a way that is not... I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy the concept.
And I would agree with you in that regard if it were Bruce making the decision that I can't marry Selina because I can't be happy and be Batman. But it wasn't.
Right.
he was on board with it. He had come to terms with the fact
True.
that I can do both of these things.
True.
And just because the story of Scott Snyder's run was him coming to terms with the idea that I can be happy and be Batman, doesn't mean that everybody else in his life necessarily understands that. Because in the modern Batman landscape, that's a new idea. That is not something that has really been part of the character's status quo for the better part of 30 to 40 years now.
Yeah, true. And there is a manipulation in it, like you said, from the Holly Robinson character. But again, it's like, for me, my instant reaction is to cringe at that, because it's like, I've been over it. And there's great stories told about that. It's like, for a character who, for so much of his time, has been built on
misery.
Yes. I was looking forward to seeing how he reacts to being in a situation where things are going pretty well for him. Mm-hmm. And, it's a situation where he can have love and he can have a relationship he always thought he could never have, because we were just told he could never have it.
And my point to that would be, isn't that kind of what we've gotten for the last 26 issues?
To what end? Like, to what purpose?
Like, I don't know yet. I can't answer that.
I mean,
I got another 50 issues to go, Greg. I can't answer that.
Right, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. It shouldn't, like, the stuff that drove me away from King's Run aside, I could have gotten drawn back in by Batman number 50. And instead it drove me away again. Mm-hmm. And I think that's ultimately my biggest disappointment with it, is this was a chance to hook me at a time when I'm really cutting down my pull list mainly because I'm so far behind on everything. I feel like there's no way I'll ever catch up. But at a time when I'm cutting down, I was 100% willing to commit my money to Batman because they were doing something I believed in, and they were doing something I thought would be fresh and interesting for the character. And instead, I feel like I'm getting a retread of a story I read when I was a kid, and a story I've seen 1,000 times, where Batman's pissed off and miserable for another 20 issues, and then, maybe he's happy at the end of this 100 issues, and then the next guy comes in, and it's back to the beginning. And it kind of goes back to one of the things we talked about way back when we did our Secret Origins podcast, of the things that drove me away from superhero comics in the 90s. Or not in the 90s, but in particularly 1996, 1997, which was when I reached that age and I realized that nothing really mattered. Like, there were no long-term ramifications ultimately, because everybody just reset everything to the status quo. And I guess maybe I've just gotten to the point where I prefer reading things in trade anyway, and succumbing to the gimmick of Batman 50, I think, just left bad taste in mouth, to paraphrase a friend of ours. And so it left me. I'm not as pissed off about it as I was a week ago when I heard the news, because I do think there's much to like about this issue. And I can understand from your standpoint, for somebody that's been reading Tom King's run completely the whole way through and enjoying it, I can see where this would be a much better issue to you, because you have the context for all this stuff. You enjoy the way that he writes the characters. For someone like me that is ho-hum on the way he writes Batman, likes the way he writes Selina, doesn't like the way he writes some of the villains, and just generally doesn't like the pace of it, for single issues anyway, it's a lot harder for me to buy into. But I was going to, unless they gave me a reason not to. And man, I got to say, for this, I was disappointed that it did not, A, that they didn't get married, and B, that it just ultimately left me, despite all this wonderful art, feeling like, it's a 100-issue story. I'll just buy the omnibus when it's all done and read the whole thing that way.
No, you won't. Don't say that.
Well, let me rephrase. Someone else will buy the omnibus, and I'll borrow it from them and read it that way, or read it on DC Universe unless it cycles out.
There you go. All right, I think we did our due diligence on Batman 50.
Yes. I'm not sure if I gave you exactly what you were looking for from me, but maybe, I don't know.
No, it was good. It was good.
So what else you got? You got a couple more comics. That's the only comic I read this week.
I got one more comic, and ladies and gentlemen, it's a fucking holiday in my household, because today, as we record this podcast, was No More Slot Day, because it's the day I've been waiting for literally
no more Dan Slots.
A decade for Dan Slott to finally be gone off of the pages of my favorite Marvel character, the Amazing Spider-Man. And so I picked up The Amazing Spider-Man #1 by and Ryan Ottley.
I was going to do it.
And, yes, that would be Hail Hydra Splint. That's his official name, apparently, on the Place to Be Nation Comics Facebook page. And I gotta say, I freaking loved this, Greg. Absolutely loved it. It's humorous. It nails the character. The art is fantastic. There are numerous story threads that are set up. And, most pettily and amazingly to me, there is a plot device in it that seems to actively undo most of, the last 5 years of Dan Slott's Spider-Man run.
What, do they make Peter poor again?
So, they reveal that Peter's doctorate he obtained while Otto had, So, Otto took over Peter's body during Superior Spider-Man and realized that Peter had never finished his doctorate level studies, or maybe his master's, or whatever it was. I don't remember. PhD, I think. And so Otto does it for him. And then when Peter now, goes on to launch his own company, become a multimillionaire, and then sell off the company and decide to take a job back at the Daily Bugle as the science editor, which is a big promotion. So he's back at the Bugle, but in a much higher position. And so he's covering this thing in his alma mater, Empire State University, that is unveiling this new technology that can detect plagiarism. And so they use one of Peter's papers as an example and reveal that it has the writings and stylings of, you guessed it, Otto Octavius. So Empire State University publicly shames Peter, strips him of his doctorate. All the people who used to work for him file suits against him, fraudulent suits against him, claiming that he stole their ideas while working at Parker Industries because he's a known plagiarist at this point. The Daily Bugle fires him from his position. Aunt May is angry with him because he won't take responsibility for the mistake he's made because he can't explain to anyone, hey, it was when Otto Octavius was taking over my body and I was, because I'm Spider-Man.
Wait a minute. So does Aunt May not know he's Spider-Man?
She doesn't know that Otto Octavius took over his body and doesn't know and also doesn't know that he's Spider-Man, I believe is the implication here. I haven't been reading Spider-Man for 10 years. I don't know what anyone knows and doesn't know. So you get all of that with seemingly major blocks of Dan Slott's run being ripped down in the very first issue. And then, at least for now, and I'm going to enjoy it for every second that it lasts, we have Peter and MJ back together.
Oh.
It is everything I wanted from the first issue of this book in 60 pages. I fucking loved it.
In fairness, Nick,
yes,
I think you need to give Dan Slott a shake and go back and read his 10 years of Spider-Man to really put it in context.
No, I'm good, thank you. I won't do that, and I won't even make the claim that I'm going to read the omnibus the way you did. You can buy the omnibus for me, and I'm still not going to read it. I've read enough to know, not my bag, baby. And this, to this point, one issue in, definitely seems to be my bag. He just nails the tone of Peter Parker and the quips and stuff better than I think Slott ever did.
Is he miserable as Peter Parker and happy as Spider-Man? Because that's kind of the dynamic that I like.
So at first, when the book first starts out, he's happy as Peter Parker, and then they show him miserable, and then they fill in all the gaps of how he went from happy to miserable.
And
that he's scuffling as Peter Parker, and he realizes that and he basically says, for the last, for God knows how long, there's been something missing in my life, and it's why I only feel alive when I'm Spider-Man, is because when I'm Peter Parker, my life isn't complete, and it's eventually revealed that he's giving this speech to Mary Jane, who welcomes him back and kisses him, and for now, I am not, trust me, once again, not getting any delusions about the long-term direction.
Now
for
Mary Jane, is she no longer working with Tony Stark?
The implication is no.
Interesting. Is there a Spider-Mobile? That's the question.
No Spider-Mobile, no. Oh. Nope. And again, Ryan Ottley's art, outstanding. I've never read Invincible, so I can't compare it to his other work, but he has already staked his claim as one of the best Spider-Man artists going, in recent memory anyway. Oh, and one other cool aspect they play up at the end. Because he's been stripped of his degree, they reveal that Empire State is putting his degree through a review board or whatever to determine if they're really gonna permanently pull it or whatever. And the lady goes, "Yeah, but there was one faculty member that spoke up for you. So here you are. Here are your things." and they're sending Peter back to college at like age 30, and his professor, Kurt Connors, as the Lizard in like a basement. Yes, I am for all these things.
So, wait a minute now. You're for a version of the Lizard who is a college professor as the Lizard?
Yeah. I've never been married to the idea of the Lizard as like a mindless savage. Like, I'm cool with the Lizard like having some intelligence about him.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is that an Ultimate thing?
No, it's not even in the Ultimates, but I've just never... You know, even like the animated series would have like him speak and stuff, you know, from time to time. And so I've never really... You know, I'm cool with that idea. And plus the Lizard is not exactly like one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, so you can kind of do what you want with him. And his Mysterio. Spencer's Mysterio. Fantastic.
Marvelous. Mm-hmm. Get it? Marvel.
Firmly on the pull list, put it that way. Firmly.
And a related topic, I have officially today reduced my pull list to Doomsday Clock, which only comes out once every 7 years. Deathstroke, which I'm in for the completion, mainly for the completions purposes of getting the whole shebang before I go back and can finish reading all of them that I have in backlog. And Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps for the same reason. It ends very soon. I figure.
Yeah, I believe I picked up 49 of that today, so only 49 and 50 left to go. Granted, you have a while to catch up on.
Yeah, definitely. So, other than that, anything else for reading from you?
That's it. Lengthy as it was.
All right. Watching. Haven't watched any TV. You?
Nope. Why don't you do your playing real quick first before we delve into the larger.
Playing. I have finished episode 5, the final episode of Guardians of the Galaxy, the Telltale series. Really good. Really good. I know that this one kind of flew under the radar, didn't get a lot of promotion, and the reviews for the early episodes weren't as strong as the reviews for Batman and particularly The Walking Dead, but ended up being awesome. I thought the voice cast did a great job, particularly Nolan North as Rocket Raccoon was outstanding. Made me connect emotionally with Rocket in a big way. Scott Porter ended up winning me over as Star-Lord, even though he sounds nothing like Chris Pratt. Ended up being an awesome story, a really great exploration of these characters, and a really cool job of creating their own versions that feel familiar if you've seen the movies, but also draw some elements from the comics and also do their own thing. I thought it was great, and I don't know if they're going to make a sequel, but I hope they do, because this was a real fun game that I think should have found more of an audience.
Yeah, you know, I have this game and haven't had a chance to play it yet, but based on your recommendation, I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out soon, hopefully.
Yep. So the other thing is, Nick and I, along with Russell and Nick's wife, Danielle, went to the local Cineplex in Dothan, Alabama last week and watched Ant-Man and the Wasp, starring Paul Rudd as Scott Ant-Man and Evangeline Lilly as Hope Wasp Woman. And
you've been waiting all week to make that joke out loud.
I have. I didn't pull it off as the way I wanted it to either. It was supposed to sound like Wasp One.
Yeah,
but it's hard for me to do that.
Yep.
Anyway, needless to say, we saw the film and watched it and have thoughts on it.
Mm-hmm. You go first.
Okay. Well, my thoughts are not particularly controversial. I thought it was very good.
Foreshadowing.
I enjoyed it. It was. I thought it was really good. You know, I don't have a whole lot of complex thoughts on it. Really, I thought it was one of the. I thought the visuals were stunning. I thought the action scenes were excellent. Some of the better action scenes of the non big group Marvel movies were in this one. Really loved any time the Wasp got to do anything. Thought they did a wonderful job with her. Enjoyed Michelle Pfeiffer as Janet Van Dyne. Continue to think that this is the only version of Hank Pym I've ever enjoyed. I thought Paul Rudd was charming, as he always is. The supporting characters were good. This did not suffer from villain syndrome like the first one did, because I thought the Ghost character was really well done. Awesome power set, awesome realization of a tragic figure that's really not a villain. I kind of appreciated the fact that this movie didn't really have a central villain per se, because I don't think of her as a villain. You did have Walton Goggins kind of playing the Southern Justin Hammer essentially, and he was kind of funny and entertaining, and as he always is. And I liked the usage pretty much of everybody in this. Thought it was just a fun time at the movies. It had an excellent mid-credit scene and a funny end-credit scene. So yeah, there was a lot to enjoy here. I didn't think it was perfect. I didn't think it was, one of the best Marvel movies. But I thought it was better in every way than the first one, except maybe controversially that I didn't think it was as funny as the first one. I still think the first one was funnier, even though this one, and I'm big, as you know, Nick, I'm big on the first one, and I thought it was funnier, but this one had a better story and a better action, sense of action to it.
Yeah, I'm not as high on the first one, obviously.
Right.
We've discussed how, to this point in our Hard Travelers for Hire series, I actually have it last on the MCU movies we've watched thus far. So that should make what I'm about to say somewhat surprising, I think, to some people. I think I liked the first one better than I liked this.
My!
This was fine. Like, it was entertaining enough. Is the most kind thing I can say about it. I did think it was visually appealing, like you said. I wasn't as blown away by some of the action sequences as you were. And I found it just really, I don't want to say boring, but just like, there were parts of it where I wanted to hit a non-existent fast forward button to get to the next, like, important thing. Like, I felt like it dragged in spots, and I don't know that it kept me engaged even as much as the first one did. Like, the first one, I have issues with the tone and with the villain, primarily. And this one, I feel like you said, for a series of movies about the Ant-Man character that set out to be comedies, I didn't feel like this one succeeded very much at being funny. Like, I thought the first one was much funnier than this, and I had major issues with the humor in the first one. You know that. I continue to be... I think they have one of the greatest comedic actors of this generation in Paul Rudd that they don't write enough material for in terms of comedy in these movies. At least in this movie. Let me not lump the first one in there with that. But yeah, I found myself uninterested at times. And I need to see it again to solidify how I feel, and maybe, it'll be one of those that holds up better on a second viewing, but just too many things going on that I didn't care about, honestly. To really be blown away by it. I will say that it continues the Marvel Cinematic Universe's streak of having not made a bad movie, but I can't say much else other than that about it.
Very good. I was waiting for this, and I'm eagerly anticipating people's reactions to this, because I will say this: I don't think that your viewing of it is that crazy. Like, I really don't, because I liked it. I thought it was excellent, actually. I thought it was really, really good, really fun, did a lot of things well, but it didn't blow me away necessarily, and I kind of was hoping it would blow me away, because I really liked the first one a lot, and I thought that there were building blocks there that could have, and I think it's because, to your point, I was expecting it to be Ragnarok level funny, and it wasn't close to that.
No.
As far as humor goes.
And I don't want to just assume that it's not going to hold up on repeat viewings. I'm not trying to say that. But if our reactions after first viewing are so muted, it makes me concerned about how it will hold up long term.
Right. And I will say, the thing about the movie that is interesting to me is it's gotten so much good buzz out of it. So many people have loved this movie. And I liked it too a lot, but I think it's interesting because of the expectations of what it is for me. Like, I was expecting it to be funnier. I'll be flat out honest about that. I thought the humor was okay. It wasn't good. It wasn't a, laugh out. Even the theater, I don't know about you, Nick. I noticed the theater wasn't really laughing that much.
And the theater was like halfway full for like a Friday night 7:30 showing as well.
Which is kind of crazy.
It was a weird setting.
It did monster numbers on Friday night, but just not in our area, I guess.
Yeah.
But it, or at least in that theater.
Right.
But it was, it was kind of a muted reaction to the jokes in it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I think I liked the tone of it. I liked the fact that it was small scale. It wasn't the end of the world happening. It was, it was a movie that, and I also appreciated the fact, this is something that I've seen brought up. I appreciated the fact that it was a sequel to Ant-Man and not a sequel to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's something that has kind of not happened.
And and with the state of the MCU right now, post Infinity War, it kind of had to be that. It couldn't be a sequel to the MCU because, that would feel weird to have large questions resolved in an Ant-Man sequel. As
someone who knows nothing about the Scott Ant-Man character, as I call him, from the comics, I find one of the most interesting characters in both of these movies to be his daughter, Cassandra, who I did not know until my boss told me this week, is an actual Marvel superhero.
Yes.
So,
she has size manipulation powers and was a member of the Young Avengers at one point. Stature, I believe, is her superhero name.
So that would be kind of cool to see, because I think she's been one of the standouts.
Okay, so not to get too heavy into spoiler territory, but casting reports already suggest that a 17-year-old actress has been cast as the older version of his daughter that will appear in Avengers 4, possibly as some sort of time travel or a time jump.
I was kind of hoping they wouldn't replace that actress.
Yeah, the problem is she's a legitimate kid, and if they want to go forward with, there's nothing to say the kid can't come back if they go forward in time and then come back. I don't know.
Yeah, because I'm hoping that they'll let her age into that role, because that would be kind of cool to see. But no, yeah, she's been great, and I thought obviously Michael Douglas as Hank Pym was great. I thought probably the funniest, at least at the top of my head, scene was when Scott Lang is kind of turned into a small child, basically, and has the exchange with Michael Douglas in the car about the juice box. That was pretty damn good.
And I liked all the humor involving him. Could you stop ogling my daughter and stuff like that?
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah,
and of course Michelle Pfeiffer was the de-aging effect, which is now I guess
everybody gets it. Michelle Pfeiffer, you get a de-aging effect. Lawrence Fishburne, you get a de-aging effect. Everybody gets a de-aging effect.
De-aging effect. Yeah, so it's almost they should put a patent on that if they haven't.
I understand she was the big MacGuffin at that they were striving for, but I was kind of disappointed there wasn't more Michelle Pfeiffer in the movie, honestly.
Yeah, well, I know you have been consistent since the first movie that you would be more interested in a 1960s, Ant-Man and the Wasp spy movie.
Yes.
And I kind of like what they're doing with having a heist movie each time with Scott Lang because I think Scott Lang is just infinitely more interesting than Hank Pym or Janet Van Dyne, personally, as far as what I like in characters. Now, the movie version is much better of Hank Pym, so maybe that would be better in his youth. But I think part of it is that he's a crotchety old man, is what I like about it. But I think there's enough generic science people in Marvel that I like the fact that Scott Lang is kind of an idiot. So.
Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't hate the movie. It was fine, but we'll see when we revisit it in a few months for Hard Travelers for Hire, where it ultimately falls. But I would say the basement needs to be clearing out some room right now.
Somewhere in the middle for me on first watch. I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah. But we will revisit when the time comes. And with all that being said,
Jesus Christ, finally.
Yeah, we are ready to wrap up this extended edition, what turned into an extended edition of Talking in Circles, the Hard-Traveling Fanboys story. And before we go, though, I have got
Oh, God.
Not 1, but 2 minutes on the clock.
Oh, boy.
It's time, ladies and gentlemen, for the Wrestling Minute. And I put 2 minutes on the clock because we had an eventful weekend at the Duke compound.
We did.
We gathered with Mr. Sellers to watch New Japan on Access Marathon leading into the G1 USA Special.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot happened on that, Nick.
Yeah, most notably, I think people have heard about Hiromu Takahashi, the young, up-and-coming junior heavyweight superstar in the making for New Japan, breaking his neck, and certainly well wishes go out to him. He went out in a hell of a match with Dragon Lee, which just followed on the hell of a performance we saw him give live when he tagged with Tetsuya Naito against the Golden Lovers of Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. But other than that, I thought also I thought the main event was very good. I know others felt differently about it. And I won't dare rate it, per se, for fear of causing any kerfluffle, but I will say I enjoyed it very much.
Yes, I did too. And I thought the Young Bucks had a great match against Evil.
They have great chemistry with Evil and Sonata. That's something I didn't necessarily foresee, but great chemistry between those 4 guys.
Absolutely. And for the first time, really, I was really impressed by Jay
White.
Because
he was a heel. For the first time. Instead of wrestling like a generic, slow, methodical guy that has no real character, he wrestled like a fucking heel. So
Yep. Even to the degree that it got a little real at times.
Mm-hmm.
And you felt it. That's kind of where the match picked up, and the fans were buying it, and I was buying it. So it was good stuff. Great show from New Japan.
Told a good story.
Yeah, great. And Juice Robinson's one of the best baby faces in the business right now.
Mm-hmm.
So good stuff. Looking forward to where it goes. Also, Raw happened.
Yep. Fuck it.
With that being said, that's the end of the Wrestling Minute. We're desperately out of time, folks. We got other shit coming your way. Next week, The Dark Knight Rises.
The tape machines are rolling, and we're desperately out of time.
We've got a countdown in a couple of weeks. Dark Knight month will conclude with that. Then we'll get into a whole new bevy of things. You out there, listening audience, thank you so much for listening to the show. Thank you for the feedback. We hope you send us more feedback in the future. Nick, any parting words?
Fuck them.
The longest running weekly episodic comic book podcast in all the Place to Be Nation.
Broadcasting from the state-of-the-art L-shaped studios at beautiful and serene Ho-Ho-Loon Plaza in Vancouver, British Columbia. Greg Phillips and Nick Duke are the Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys, Hard-Traveling Fanboys. When you hear this show, you better run for cover. Klondike Bill's a sausage lover. I got a 10-inch kielbasa from Klondike Bill. Hard-Traveling Fanboys. Slobber. It's a weekly podcast and you better listen. Keep your ears in mid-condition. Ooh, Hard-Traveling Fanboys. You got a 33 and a third chance of winning. Hard-Traveling Fanboys. 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 Got 2 weekly segments coming to your town. Reading, watching, and the rundown. Do. Thank you. It's the greatest show on Place to Be Nation. Certainly a unique situation. Ooh, Hard-Traveling Fanboys. Oh, they're pretty, they're skittles. Hard-Traveling Fanboys. 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 Hard-Traveling Fanboys.
vicious little son of a bitch.
They're indivisible. They're microwavable.
No, Mr. Eddie.
Ooh, hard-traveling fanboy. Oi, 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 oi.
Are you gonna give me fucking anything on this show, or why are we even here?
Listen up, you slap dick. Let me answer the fucking question. Give me a minute. Well, Klondike Bill told me that if he ever came across a woman who was extremely clean and well kept, he would tell her to put on a pair of sweatpants and a sweatshirt, go take a 2-mile jog, and then come back and see him when she was done.
I believe it was quite sudden and painful.
Hard-Traveling Fanboys, 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 Hard-Traveling Fanboys,